Hello everyone and welcome to Techstrong TV. Today is Thursday, July 28th, and I'm your host, Natan Solomon. Today we'll bring you some stellar interviews from conferences around the world, so stay tuned. I'll start by bringing you your Techstrong news recap to quickly catch you up on everything happening in the tech world. Then, Alan met with Tomas Kratky, the founder and CEO of Manta. In this interview, Alan and Tomas talk about Manta's $35 million round, as well as how he took a solution and built the company around it. We then bring you to JFrog's Yalla DevOps in Israel, where Alan interviewed Fred Simon, the co-founder and chief data scientist of JFrog, and Amit Ezer, leading JFrog Connect. The three chatted about the challenges of delivering software to connected devices and the edge of using the DevOps framework that has evolved in the cloud. Next, we take you to KubeCon Cloud Native Con, where Alan interviewed the chief engineer for DevSecOps at Boeing, Chad Bowden. In this discussion, Alan and Chad talk about Boeing's recent announcement on becoming a CNCF Platinum member. We then have an interview from RSA with Amol Kulkarni, the Chief Product and Engineering Officer at CrowdStrike. Alan sits down with Amol to discuss DevOps culture, and Amol makes several big product announcements, so be sure to tune in for that. Next, we bring you part 2 of The Haunted Hacker. This edition picks up where we left off on Tuesday, as Mike Jones is joined by the host of the Barcode podcast. Then, we have episode 12 of The Open Mainframe. Hosts Mitch Ashley and John Merdick are joined by Elizabeth Joseph, Jacob Balhan, and Stacy Miller to preview the upcoming Open Mainframe Summit in Philadelphia. We then bring you to KubeCon Cloud Native Con, where Mitch is joined by Tom Ellery and Patrick Björkström of Stormforge. In this interview, Tom, Mitch, and Patrick discuss how to bring transparency into your Kubernetes costs. Next, Mitch meets with Ranjit Tenekar from Nest Digital Engineering to discuss how recent world events impact the future of digital transformation. We then cap the show off with 2 editions of View with Vizard. In the first, Mike is joined by Ofer Mayor, the CTO of Midija. Ofer and Mike talk about how platforms such as Slack and Microsoft Office 365 are being compromised by cybercriminals. In the second, Mike talks with Olesia Klevchuk from Barracuda Networks about how HTML attachments are becoming much more malicious. That's what we have coming up for you here on Techstrong TV. Let's get the show started. Enjoy.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
Today is Thursday, July 28th, and here are the headlines. First in news, Amazon is raising the price of Prime for UK customers due to higher operating costs. Starting in September, monthly subscriptions will go up £1 to $8.99, with annual memberships rising from £79 to $95. The price rise is the first in the UK since 2014, and Amazon claims it's partly due to inflation. Companies around the world have had to cut back on expenses as macroeconomic conditions continue to deteriorate. The move doesn't come as much of a surprise as Amazon raised its prices in the US in February, while companies like Netflix and CVS have also raised prices due to inflation. Prime offers users more than just streaming, as it also provides unlimited deliveries on products, so even with the price hike, customers may still find it to be an essential product. Next, Best Buy is opening a small, digital-first store in Monroe, North Carolina. The store will be 15% of the size of a regular Best Buy store and will be even smaller than some of the Apple stores seen around the country. Despite the size, the store will still carry large TVs, computers, headphones, wearables, phones, and more. The compromise, however, is that it won't carry large appliances. The digital-first store will offer a completely different experience than people are used to, as people will walk in to a large 7-foot screen containing information about what the store has to offer, as well as lockers for online order pickups. Generally, most items around the store will be display items, and when customers want to make a purchase, they will use Best Buy's Just Scan It process using the QR code on the product. Overall, the store is a test run, but it may prove to be an innovation used by other companies in the future. In other news, General Motors reached a deal with LG Chem to secure a supply of cathode active material, or CAM. This material is essential for GM, as it is attempting to make enough electric vehicles to become completely carbon neutral by 2040. LG Chem will be supplying CAM to GM starting toward the end of 2022, and the deal is set to last until 2030. According to the automaker, it will have enough battery material to power around 5 million electric vehicles. GM also has plans to spend $30 billion by 2025 on the creation of 30 new plug-in models, as it continues to play catch-up with the industry titan, Tesla. With GM representing about 6% of the electric vehicle market in the US, Tesla is out to a staggering head start, representing 66%. GM also plans on spending over $4 billion on the construction of 2 battery factories in North America in partnership with LG Chem. Next, Hulu is making headlines as it faces backlash for its decision not to air ads that talked about gun control and abortion. The Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and Democratic Governors Association attempted to buy joint ads focusing on abortion and gun control, with identical ad placements on other channels. Among the channels they attempted to air on, Hulu was the only one that rejected the ads, citing content-related issues as the reason. In response, #BoycottHulu went viral on Twitter and across different social media platforms. The rejection of the advertisement comes soon after an extremely controversial Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade, as well as numerous mass shootings that have sparked outrage. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee responded by saying that Hulu's censorship of the truth is outrageous and offensive. So we'll have to wait and see if this develops further or blows over. We also have an update from the CEO of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, which gives insight to the direction Instagram is headed. Recently, some people have noticed full-screen videos and photos on their feeds, as Instagram continues to evolve year after year. However, many say the update isn't for the better, with celebrities like Kylie Jenner and Kim Kardashian saying things like "stop trying to be TikTok" and "make Instagram again." In response, Mosseri says the video shift will continue, but photos aren't completely going away. He also said that Instagram will continue to try to put friend-based content at the top of the feed and at the front of Instagram stories. Although the CEO declined to comment further, it seems like this may be only the beginning of Instagram's changes. On Container Journal, we have an article discussing the importance of the NSA K-8's guidelines. The guidelines are an extensive 66-page document covering best practices for categories such as pod security, network separation, and threat detection. Companies around the world are adopting Kubernetes, but security needs need to be a top priority. These guidelines from the NSA provide organizations with a means of secure use of Kubernetes. On Security Boulevard, we have an article discussing Alkira's recent cloud service integration with firewalls from Fortinet. This integration makes it possible to automate the deployment of Fortinet firewalls with networking services from cloud service providers. This integration was designed to help secure networks that cloud service providers give them access to. The integration between Alkira and Fortinet is an example of the connection between network and security operations. Security of cloud networks requires us to rethink how to approach security operations, which is something that this integration tries to achieve. Finally, on Digital CXO, we have an article talking about how CIOs can better position their organization during the tech talent crunch. With employee turnover increasing, the tech talent crunch is impacting almost every organization. In order to succeed, CIOs must think creatively and implement strategies to not only retain top talent, but also attract new talent by offering competitive packages. And that's today's Techstrong News Recap.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Techstrong TV interview. I am really happy to have on today Thomas Kratky, and I mispronounced that because I don't have that Slovak accent down. I apologize. But Thomas, we try. Welcome to Techstrong TV. How are you?
Just thanks for inviting me. Doing great. Just really exciting about this discussion and interview.
Great. So Thomas, I mentioned you are the founder CEO of Manta. Why don't you, let's start here. What is Manta? Give us a little background, maybe a little of your own background as well.
Absolutely, we'll be happy to. So my background, very simple. I was years ago, developer, engineer, data engineer, consultant, working for a lot of larger enterprises back in Europe. And Manta was one of the projects we did for, at least back then, it was very small utility, but it started as a project for one of the customers we had back then in 2012 or 11 in finance back in Prague. And then over time, as we did use again and again the tool, we realized, wow, actually there is value. There is something we can do not only here for project, we can do something globally. We can help all enterprises out there, not just a couple companies with headquarters in Czech Republic. And that's how the story started, basically as a project for a customer.
And what did the project do?
Actually, Manta is, the easiest thing how you can visualize what Manta is to imagine a Google map. So Manta is a Google map of your data environment. You see flow of data as, like journey of data from source systems to dashboards and reports. You see every transformation of data. You see every movement of data, every calculation. It can be in your SQL scripts. It can be in your reports. It can be in your ETL, ELT transformations. It can be Excel sheet. You also transform data in your Excel sheet. So it can be everywhere. And you see all of it step by step, starting in your source systems like invoicing system or CRM system, ending up in your dashboards and reports. So like journey of data visualized as a Google map. So that's the easiest way how to imagine what Manta does.
Absolutely. And of course, Manta's name, but there's a real life Manta. Why don't we do a little background on that?
Actually, there is, of course, like everyone knows Manta, those beautiful creatures, but there is also a plant called Manta, and it's here. I really love it. It looks like real Manta, like the animal, and it's a beautiful plant. So, it's everywhere in my life.
I got it. Okay, Manta's everywhere. And Thomas, so this is how you came to found Manta. You were working in Prague for the company when I guess you helped originally write the project or start the project.
Yeah,
That's true. The whole story is even more complicated. I'm also a university teacher historically. I was teaching at 2 universities back in Prague. And Manta, we had like something small, very, very small. And we had very good relationship with two major technical universities back in Prague, doing a lot of research together, like students doing like master thesis and bachelor thesis. And there was an idea, maybe we can combine these together and maybe we can use the research and maybe some like government funding that's used for research. And we can combine it with this idea that's actually super nice, but we have no money to develop a real product. We can combine these two things together and we can create something even better. And we did. So I think it was 2013. We won a national competition as a combination of a research at university and like a small company. And combined together, we spent next 3 years working on a product. We were super lucky to get funding from government and European funds. It was really, really amazing how we were able to start and bootstrap using this. So it's, like this university thing, it can change a lot, and it did in my life.
Excellent. Love it. And just, I don't know if you mentioned it and I missed it, but what was the time frame for the founding of Manta? And
so that's actually a very good question. As I mentioned, we built something for a customer around 2012. In 2013, we won the national competition, and the university industry research project started. And in second half of 2016, we were ready to start a company. So by, let's say, 2016, Manta was founded as an independent entity. as a spin-off from the IT services company I was working for back then. So starting with 2017, we were fully independent, 5, 6, 7 people, something small and selling to mostly US financial companies.
Got it. All right. Thanks for the background. Let's get to the news. What you guys recently had some news you want to share?
Absolutely. We are super excited to announce that like a month ago, more or less, we were able to close a Series B funding. It was a big moment for us. We have raised 35 millions from multiple investors, Forstay, EBRD, Bessemer, venture partners, SAP, and plenty of other smaller parties. But it was a really big milestone for us. So everyone at Manta is excited right now. And they are thinking like, what's the best way how to use the money?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, congratulations. Certainly we are seeing market changes in fundraising and availability of money and the cost of money, and with inflation and the war and everything, COVID. So, congratulations to you and the team, and those are some great investors to have as well.
Bessemer,
absolutely, yeah,
very well
Actually,
known.
Funny story is that Series A, we did it in the middle of COVID pandemic. So clearly, I'm trying to raise money whenever just the world is falling down.
Sometimes you got to zig when everyone's zagging, right? And
that's the way it is. So, for our audience, Thomas, as I mentioned to you off camera, fairly technical audience, and everyone gets excited with big numbers, of course, and 35 million is a lot of money. But in terms of what does it mean for them? What does it mean for Manta? No one's going to hold your feet to the fire. This isn't an audit. But, what will these funds be used for?
That's a very good question. Maybe, if I may, I will answer in a little bit longer way. So first thing is, what we can all see around us when it comes to data and data infrastructure is really crazy. I mean, for most companies, even like very traditional companies existing for 50 years, last 5 to 10 years, it's like explosion of complexity. That's one of the key reasons why I was so obsessed with Manta and starting the company, because there was nothing for data engineers out there to help them deal with that complexity. That's why the map idea just, otherwise you are completely lost. And things, when it comes to complexity, are getting worse every single day. We have new and new technologies. We mix 50, 70 different technologies to build what we call a data pipeline or data stack. When we talk about larger enterprises, it's just hundreds of technologies, sometimes even thousands of data pipelines or tens of thousands of data pipelines. It's just really, really difficult to navigate. And as I said, we are moving faster and faster, and there is nothing to control this ecosystem. And that's why Series B was so critical for us. We were very successful so far with seed series, Series A. We were able to develop very, very good technology to navigate the existing infrastructure and help many, many companies, very large companies out there to actually get visibility. And if I'm a data engineer, really, really terrified that if I change one column in one table and my top executive report will break because there is a dependency I don't see, we want to remove this fear from lives of data engineers out there. And why Series B is so critical for us? Because now we see, as I mentioned, complexity getting even higher. You have tons of new technologies. We need to support them very well. So we are talking about technologies like Databricks, for example. We are talking about technologies that were created yesterday or 2 days ago, and tomorrow they will be used as part of modern data stack by first 10, 15, 20, 100 companies. So that's one big part what we want to achieve with the money. to support these very, very young, less mature technologies and help more companies using them. That's one part. Second part, that's even more critical. When you think about data today, everything is so fragmented. You have silos everywhere. And not like just with data, but also with metadata. If you think about who understands data in the company, you typically have like 5, 6, or 10 different silos with different information about data you have. And everyone is trying to integrate everything together. And that's very difficult. And also coming from, let's say, dark ages of integration, where every vendor was so obsessed with like hiding APIs and not integrating with others, you see the market like very slowly discovering how critical it is to have an open ecosystem. So Manta is one technology. Can Manta solve everything? No. Manta gives you a map. So what now? What about your data privacy solutions? How they can use the map? What about your data quality solutions? How they can use the map? What about your data engineering CDCI solutions or testing solutions? How they can use the map? Should everyone develop the map, or should we somehow integrate as an industry? But we have no standards, right? That's one of the issues really killing us. And big part of the money and the reason why we raised is we want to level up this integration ecosystem. Manta was open since day one, but that's not enough. We need to help others to be open too. And for now, we are doing it by really integrating with everyone and everything we can in data space. We are working or helping other companies to define standards. Just we are involved in every possible way you can imagine. But the ultimate goal for us is to integrate across the whole data management stack. And by doing so, we will be able to help every single data professional out there. Because otherwise, that map is hardly available if you are not a data engineer or data architect and not using Manta directly. But there are many other people in the company who would benefit from better visibility, but they can't because integration is not there. And that's a big, big task for us. I think not only for us. There are other companies trying to do the same. It's just very hard.
I love it. Thomas, we didn't tell people, and first of all, I want to thank you for coming on. I know you were feeling a little under the weather, but you know what? When the going gets tough, the tough get going, right?
That's true.
We didn't tell people how to get more information, the Manta website.
Actually, the easiest you can do is to go to getmanta.com. That's the easiest. We also have Twitter and LinkedIn, but starting at getmanta.com is the easiest and the best.
Absolutely. Hey, we're about out of time. I want to thank you for coming on, as I mentioned. You know what? Don't wait till the next time you raise money.
Come on and keep us posted with what's going on with Manta.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a real pleasure to be here.
Our pleasure to have you on, Thomas.
Perfect.
Thomas Krotke, founder, CEO of Manta, here on Techstrong TV. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
This is Techstrong TV.
All right. Hey, we're back here at Yalla DevOps in the Hilton Tel Aviv. The buzz is, the roar has died down a little bit because the sessions are back open. It was very loud here. 700 strong, sold out conference. Conferences are back, and it's good to be back. Let me introduce you to our next two guests. One needs no introduction. He's been on my show for years and years. We just came off stage, and that's Fred Simon, who is a co-founder and is a chief data scientist, right?
Yes.
For JFrog. Fred, welcome back.
Thank you.
And sitting next to Fred, we have this is the first time on our show.
It is, yeah.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
All right. So
actually, this camera's looking.
All right. So my name is Amir. Amit Ezer. I'm leading JFrog Connect, which is a new group here at JFrog. We were a startup actually that JFrog acquired a year ago that's called UpSwift, and now we're part of the family of JFrog, and it's so excited to be here actually. And thank you for hosting us.
It's our pleasure. So we have a tradition. The first time a guest is on, usually you got to give a little background about your family, your education. You want to tell us?
Well,
I'm only kidding. She'll yell at me for going off. We got to stay on.
All right.
But anyway, welcome, Avita. Thank you for being here. So, one of a theme that's developing at Yala this year is, I think Shlomi called it the DevOps of things, right? This whole idea of devices, not just phones and iPads, but devices that are connected to the net, and controlling them maybe at the edge, the relationship between the cloud, the edge, device, and what this means for developers, right? Because it's a new, just like when we started developing for the cloud, and DevOps kind of took over, first Agile, then DevOps. We're almost moving, I feel like, into a new era. So what does this mean, and what's JFrog's role in that?
I'm going to start at the high level, and Amit is more his hand into the oil and opening the trunk and getting into the devices. But yes, at the high level, computing and the power of the devices are actually getting bigger and bigger, and there start to be a lot of layers. We talked about it on the panel. That was really nice. There is the very microcontroller, and then there is actual Linux embedded devices, which are what we are focusing on. And then there is edges, and then there is the big cloud, and all these different layers with different capability. But all of them have quite a good level of computing, memory, storage power on very small power devices and environment. And all of them, they need software. And this is kind of the revolution we are living today, is that most of the people that are designing those micro devices, they are hardware specialists, and they have the software guys that develop with them, and they have the same kind of mentality, and this agile, deploy every day, over-the-air update, continuous, and all this kind is not part of their thinking. And this is where we need to be, this is where we need to go. Not only because it's fun to update software over the air,
right,
but because it really provides value to the device. It's also more secure. That's the only way to secure the devices. There will be always problems. And the world is changing also. Every sensor is in a different environment, needs to connect to different systems, and so there is always better way of doing it, more system to connect to. So change is the root of the game, and this is what UpSwift is doing to help them.
And I will add to that and say, you said, Alan, that it's a new era, and in that term of IoT, and it's for me it's amazing. I see customers every day. I meet customers every day, and they just looking for best practices in this market, because they all came from the regular DevOps cloud environment where they are using Ansible or Kubernetes on the providers out there that are giving them a lot of tools. And when they are coming to the challenges that they meet in the edge, they try, the first thing that as a developer you probably will try to do, you will try to take something that you already know and connect it with a few scripts that you can you can develop for your use case. And when I'm showing them Connect, when I'm showing them what we did here, you see their eyes, and you see that they understand that we are really trying to build here the end-to-end solution from the developer to the device with all the tools that they might need to have in this area. And connecting to a few things that Fred said, we see more and more complex software in the edge, and it's of course coming with strong hardware that is getting there. And this is another positive thing to see from the side, that you see where the future is going. The future is really going to this place where you're going to have a really strong device in the edge, in the end, running with containers, and not one or two. It is funny, but we do have now a project with more than 20 containers running on an edge device. That's just crazy, right? And I mean, you can't run 20 containers without having a good maintenance system behind it. So that's really the story of what we're going to see, I think, a few years from now.
I think sooner than you think, because things have a way of accelerating. But I was talking to Shlomi earlier. We did an interview. Here, I've been in this technology a long time. There's a saying, old technology never dies, right? It just gets kind of subsumed, absorbed into the next thing, right? So, I know in my lifetime, I went from before the internet to TCP/IP and the internet, then the cloud, right? But just because, and we spend so much focus on cloud today, doesn't mean the data center went away. It didn't go away. There's probably as much in data centers as there is in the cloud.
That's right.
Now we'll focus on the edge because that's the shiny new baby we want to play with. Doesn't mean the cloud goes away. So I think the same way we learned multi-cloud, we're going to learn multi-home, multi-place, right? Yeah. So there's a place for the cloud on the device, or there's a relationship between the cloud and the device. There's a relationship between the edge and the cloud.
But it's for the multi-cloud and the hybrid and things like that, it's really decentralized.
Right.
It's distributed. Okay.
Yep.
Every Kubernetes cluster in Google, Amazon, or Azure is the same Kubernetes cluster. Here with the edge, there is a hierarchical organization that needs to be taken in place. By the way, we have it today in the cloud native application between the amount of things that you do on the client side, in your NPM, in your JavaScript kind of things. How much compute you put in your JavaScript web, or how much in the back. And we start to see that they were really, really funny about a bunch of young JavaScript developers that just discovered that they can generate HTML on the server. They were super excited about generating HTML on the server and sending it to the client.
Like a brand new, what a concept. What a concept. Only I had thought of it.
So about technology never dying.
It doesn't.
They spend all their life generating DOM out of JavaScript and all this stuff on the server. Maybe I can do it on the server and send it all format. That was really, really funny. But for the edge, it's kind of the experience we are seeing here, exactly the same. How much compute you put on the edge, and the thing is that a car, for example, is a full data center. There is a centralized one that is actually connected to the internet.
Yes.
There is another centralized computer that is controlling the car. A lot of microcontrollers.
Many controllers.
There is
like hundreds and thousands of CPU.
And there is the display for entertainment display and all these kind of things.
A whole nother one.
Exactly. So when you look at it, it's a full data center, okay, with a lot of
That's
And
exactly
so-
it. Living on the edge.
And yeah.
I mean, literally,
Yeah, that's this.
And each one has a different level of security, and each one has a different
Operating system.
operating systems, and the way to update. And it's quite clear that today the way it is developed, updated, secure, and distributed is a huge waste of energy for all the developers. There is a huge waste of time
Cycles.
wasted
Yeah.
doing the same thing again, wrongly most of the time, the first time, and trying to fix it. And this is what we need to create and we need to provide, is the platform to help those guys say, please don't reinvent the wheel. There is a way to do that.
Yeah, we do JavaScript that does HTML. But that being, I don't disagree with anything you guys said, but I think the other key to it is, and I mentioned it on stage, is the 5G aspect, right? This idea of instantaneous, deep communication, right? Because otherwise we have to build the edge to be autonomous, right? Like, let's take cars, right? I told you, I just got a brand new a BMW iX. I had to wait a long time, mostly because the chips.
Yeah.
It was chips, with supply chain. But it's a data center. There are, I forgot how many chips that go into this car, and the software is automatically updated. It's the latest iOS, not iOS, the latest OS from BMW, right?
Yes.
I had an incident last month. My radio, I actually don't have radio, I have satellite. The satellite wasn't playing. It said it was playing, but it wasn't playing. I went right to the dealer. He apologized. I had a bad update.
Yeah.
And they had to re-update it. Once they updated, everything worked great again. This is the world we're going to live in. So my two questions on this.
You should not have, the goal of what we are doing is, we as a developer that develop this system for BM, we should be aware of your problem before you are.
Exactly.
That's
instead
exactly
of
what
my
you should.
system saying your sound is playing, and I'm saying unless I'm deaf, it's not playing. It should have reported back, right? So two things. Number one, you hit it. The end user, he shouldn't be part of it, right?
Yeah, it doesn't.
You wanted to say it has to be done,
Right?
But yeah,
it just should work. It should just work like Apple, just work.
Yeah.
Right? But here's my point, and we do it for the developers. At what point have we put too much on that developer's plate? Right? We put security on their plate. They had to learn from to become like it said on the slides, from Java to full stack, now to
Kubernetes and
Kubernetes and Edge. At some point, does it? That we have this problem with airplanes, right? Do we need can humans still pilot planes better than autopilot, than machine? Are we getting to the point where humans, it's too much?
I mean, even as a developer, the only way for us to create the quantity of software that is needed for the world run software is to use tools and to create. This is what we are doing. So we create our own automation and we create our own software.
So we're going to automate our way out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
what do you think?
So that's why I want to make them suffer more.
You're a little younger than us. What do you think? I mean, when you're sitting here 10, 20 years from now.
Well, first of all of this reminding me that coding is another word that is getting to a place where you won't need to code. You already see a lot of automations that are helping you to write code faster, and there will be a day that you won't need to know the syntax at all, probably, for the languages that you are using. But I do believe that we need to, our job should be that we need to help the developers have less and less constraints by giving them the solutions ready as possible. You know, with Kubernetes today, you need to know a lot before you can do something. And that's one of the key things that I really put when I started Upswift and as part of JFrog and the whole end-to-end solution that we gave. We want the developer to stay where he's good at and giving him the tools in a way that he doesn't really need to know what is going on behind it in the background. You know, just by using a UI that my parents can use without having any knowledge in the world of programming, that's for me. This should be where we are going to, and keep the developer focused on what he is doing best, which is of course the application and not the infrastructure.
Kubernetes.
Stas from Yahoo, he had a very good definition of what is DevOps, and it applies really perfectly for IoT. It's from commit to production without human intervention. Everything that the developer does once he writes the code and he has a commit, how this code ends up on your car, on your machine,
that's DevOps.
All process, there should not be any human in the middle manipulating. There need to be a lot of automation, a lot of things that humans are automating and putting in the process, and a lot of automated processes, but there no need for human intervention. And today in the IoT world, the amount of human intervention to deploy a new firmware to devices is just through the top. Is just crazy. We need to fix that.
It is. It's so in cars. It's in everything we do. Even so I'm a big Sonos user at home. My whole house is Sonos. When there's an update to Sonos, I can't watch TV, right? Because it never works. I always got to get in and do it by hand. And it's just
and pray. That's
it winds up with a call.
I do multi-provider. I have NVIDIA and then Android and then Integra. I have all kinds. So and Google Home and Alexa. They talk to each other. So I don't trust any one of them, but they all wake up, and at least there is always one of them. But
well, I do the Amazon Alexa if the Sonos don't work, but still, it frustrates me.
Yes.
Even if out of the 15 or 16 speakers, just that one's not working, I take the whole thing apart to make one of them work, even though I take 14 offline. But anyway, that's I'm sick like that. Anyway, I want to end our interview with this. It is sort of a new era here, right? We need to think. Just like when we first started getting our head around a cloud and a public cloud, we need to think about devices, about edge, and about what that means for developers, what it means for the end users, what it means for the way we do, never lose sight of everything we do is for a reason, right? All of this fantastic innovation and automation. Look what the world, especially now, right, with COVID, where would we have been without all of this COVID, right? And that's something we can't lose sight of, right? We do this to make everyone's lives better, right? To do things better. And if somehow we could do it, then it's worthwhile to do.
Yes. Yeah. For the developer suffering continuous integration, there was one sentence that was really good for continuous integration. If it hurts, if it's painful, do it more often.
I make it better, exactly.
As a developer, and then you start to automate, and this is exactly what we need to do here. It hurts, it's painful, do it more
often, and we'll get better. Welcome to your first Techstrong TV. It's been a year at JFrog.
Yes.
Continued success.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a break. I think they're going to probably do lunch here at Yala, and then we'll be back after lunch. We have Fred back on with our friend Baruch. We're going to talk about a new book as well. And we have a whole bunch of other guests, so check us out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
This is Digital Anarchist.
All right, back here on the still crowded KubeCon floor. Liz Rice, her hand's going to fall off. She's signing so many books out there. But people are lined up as far as I can see here for her books. So that's a great thing. We have one more interview we're doing on our coverage for KubeCon 2022 here in Europe. I want to introduce you to Chad, and I just blanked your last name. Chad Bowden. Chad is from Boeing. And actually, Chad, why don't you tell them the story a little bit?
Chad Bowden, Chief Engineer for DevSecOps at Boeing. A lot of stuff going on there for all the things that we're doing with containerization. One of the big reasons we're out here, one of my colleagues is, we announced our platinum sponsorship of CNCF, so now Boeing is, it's been outstanding. We're excited to see all the fun stuff that we do. Ricardo Torres, who's just off camera, he was on the keynote the first day that we were here. So he's going to be on the board of governance for them, having a lot of fun. Super smart guy, super talented guy. So yeah, we've been having a great time here. Let me ask you a question. And it is a great question for our audience out there. Why does a company like Boeing, right, a platinum sponsorship in CNCF Linux Foundation is a pretty penny. I don't know how much off the top of my head, but it's a pretty penny. Yeah. Why does a company like Boeing make that kind of commitment? Yeah, it's a little multifaceted in what we're doing there, and part of the other thing that I didn't really talk about that we're doing is we're really leaning into a lot of our open source contribution. We just we stood up an OSPO office within Boeing, brought in a senior manager, and she's also working with my colleague Ricardo on standing up this OSPO. I mean, Boeing does lots of software, right? I mean, tons of software. A lot of people think, it's just planes and the weapon systems and satellites, but I mean, it's all we know. Software ate the world a long time ago, and so we do lots with software, and we want to make it easier to contribute back to the open source. It's been a challenge within Boeing for quite a while to do that. So one of the reasons for the CNCF sponsorship is to help facilitate us working closer with open source and industry and containerization. We use containerization everywhere. We have quite a few domains that we're trying to solve problems in, right? Putting containers or looking at putting, Kubernetes on air platforms or on, missiles or just pulling down satellite telemetry. I mean, we have a broad problem set that we're trying to solve. It's not just one problem that we're trying to solve with like a big Kubernetes cluster. We're looking at thousands of Kubernetes clusters, and they're all different, right? Some are K3s, some are K8s, some are on the edge. A lot of them are disconnected in closed areas. So like the problems are really immense that we're trying to solve. So all of that is just a long way of saying, that's really one of the reasons why we wanted to get more closely involved with the CNCF to help facilitate a lot of that back and forth communication. Cool. Yeah. Excellent. If you don't mind, let's turn to DevSecOps a little bit. Absolutely, yeah. It's your thing, right? Yeah, so we started a couple of years ago, I don't know, 2.5 years ago or so. Pretty small effort, just me and a couple other guys going, you know what, we need to, I'm tired of building the same old software factory over and over again for different programs, and it's always a little bit different. So we started building just a containerizer. Like, I think we started with OpenShift. Let's grab OpenShift, throw it down, deploy a whole bunch of tools in there, right? Jenkins, SonarQube, just everything that you need to start writing software, right? Not too long after that, the DoD came out with their reference architecture for DevSecOps, right? If you hadn't heard of that, it's a pretty big thing in the defense community that the DoD brought out this reference architecture to really help a lot of the companies kind of inform where you're going. So it helped us in that regard, but since then, we've been continuing to just grow our capabilities. One of the big challenges that we have there, you know, as you probably know from interviewing all the people that you interview, is, you know, on the DoD side, and it's not just DoD, but I talk a lot about DoD, right? You're talking Air Force, Navy, Marines, Army, and they all have different problem sets, and they all want things just a little bit different, and some's classified, some's unclassified, some of it's both. And so having a software factory that we can deploy that provides DevSecOps capabilities, right? And as you know, it's not just the tools, right? It's easy to say, all right, here's the tools, you know, thou shalt have DevSecOps from now, right? But it's really about the culture in there. Yeah.
Well, that goes to something, you know, the reference architecture that you mentioned a little bit ago. I mean, for you guys, well, you were already far down that path anyway, right? So the reference architecture was almost validation.
Yes.
More than it was, oh my God, this is new to me. Yeah. Right? This was more validation. And when, look, in my prior business, Mitchell and I, you know, co-founded, along with our friend Raj, company Still Secure, we did a ton of DoD stuff, 60% of our business. When you have that stamp of approval that we have an official reference architecture, that becomes sort of that gold standard, right? That gold release that you can follow, and whether it's Boeing or Lockheed or, you know, name any federal contractor, they're all following that reference architecture. Yeah. You could bank on it.
Yep.
And that kind of uniformity, you may say, oh, we're better, and you may be, but at least you have that minimum bar of, hey man, this is what you need to be at.
Yeah. So a little bit on that one, like I would like to say that we were way far down the path by the time that reference architecture. We weren't by the time it came out. And it's a lot of work to get there. That reference architecture was a lot, right? It wasn't just you have to have Kubernetes and you have to have hardened containers that are coming out there. I mean, it went a long way. The DoD put a lot of thought into it, and they did a good job on that. And it's been taking us a long time to, when the reference architecture came out, validating is absolutely the word that I use. Part of it was like informing, like, oh, we didn't think about X, now we need to go do X, but it was also a lot of validation that we had in there. And then they've come out, you know, with a version 2 of it, you know, and which is good that they've been continuing on that. But it's a lot of work to build that thing.
Hence the CNCF, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, these kinds, what we're seeing, and again, we haven't been in a big place like this, right, in a couple of years. But the world hasn't stopped. Software development hasn't stopped.
No.
Certainly, it's accelerated.
Yeah.
And so you can't work on version 1 3 years later, right? There's gotta be version 2. We just interviewed the GitLab folks, right? They're gonna have a new milestone release coming out. They do them once a year, the big milestones. This is just the nature of our business, right? That, frankly, too often times, by the time a reference architecture comes out, it's obsolete.
Yep.
Right? Because if you took a year putting it together, it's a year old.
Yeah.
And so we see that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And the former chief software officer of the Air Force who was very instrumental in coming out with this reference architecture, he ended up, you know, stepping away, and part of it was due to a lot of frustration of things moving too slow in the government. And
I hear you.
Yeah, and
you know, but so let me be fair to all my government friends out there, right? Some things they do move slow.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of things around DevOps where I've seen a lot of government initiatives take a leading role in.
Yeah.
Even here in Linux Foundation projects. So they don't have to be slow. Anyone who says, well, it's the government, what do you expect?
Yeah, right.
They don't have, when it works right, it works right.
Yeah, and just because, you know, if in any one area the government happens to be slower than where we are, Boeing as a company, like that's not an excuse for us to not go fast.
That doesn't mean, we should slow down for them.
We want to be ahead and help.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, we want to be ahead and help. Plus, Boeing's more than just government, right?
Absolutely.
We got a lot of commercial software that we're doing, and
God knows.
So we got to do that right. And
I don't even want to bring it up.
Nope.
Not mentioning that.
But there's a lot of software involved in there, and it's constantly changing, and you're always, not all of it's containerized, right? Containerization within big companies is still relatively new.
Well, and we forget that too. We're here, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
So we're here at KubeCon, and of course the whole world's using this stuff.
Yes.
Not so much.
Yep. Absolutely.
Anyway, Chad, we're about out of time, man. Yep. I want to thank you. For people, do you
Absolutely.
have
thank you.
Well, actually, the Boeing CNCF will be on the CNCF website.
Yep, Boeing's on there. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn, Chad Bowden, if you have my name.
Absolutely,
on the show,
man.
But I appreciate your time.
All right, we hope to maybe see you at RSA.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks.
We are on there. Hey, that's going to wrap it. Great KubeCon, great Cloud Native Con. Great event here. We hope everyone gets home healthy and happy. We will see you next live at RSA in San Francisco. Chad's going to be there too. That's the week of June 5th. But for now, this is Alan Schimmel for Techstrong TV. Today, we're out. Bye-bye.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey everyone, we're back here live. This is day 4, our last day of live coverage at RSA Conference. It's nice and quiet. It's early in the morning here. It's only about 9 o'clock. And the crowds that came in are already in. And so here in Moscone West, it's probably one of the quietest times we've had all week.
Fantastic.
Which makes for great live broadcasting. Let me introduce you to our guest for this segment. His name is Amol Kulkarni.
That's correct.
Is that
you got it right.
All right. Amol, first of all, welcome and thanks for joining us. I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself. What is your title and responsibilities? You're with, I should mention, Amol is with CrowdStrike. What do you do at CrowdStrike?
Great to be here, Alan. I am the Chief Product and Engineering Officer at CrowdStrike. So I run product management, defining the vision, the roadmap for our technology, where we are going. And then, of course, I also have engineering to deliver on that. So it's define as well as deliver. It's end-to-end ownership.
Yeah. And, we were talking a little off camera. I'm Digital CXO, our newest community and brand that we've been developing, is really a testament to this kind of new way of thinking.
That's true.
At the upper echelons, this C-level.
That's right.
And so the idea of having a C-level person who not only defines the product, but then actually leads the team building the product.
That's right.
You know what? 5-10 years ago, that was unheard of.
That was not common. Yeah.
Very not common.
Yeah.
But today we're seeing this more and more.
Yeah.
The chief product officer is also the chief technology officer, or the chief engineering guy is also the CTO.
Right.
The CIO sometimes is also the chief information security officer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is it's a very different. Digital transformation, I think, is
pushing that out. I mean, I think the way to think about it is we work with the full DevOps mindset, and to me, DevOps is a culture,
right?
Where it's all about that end-to-end ownership. So even within engineering, we say the engineers have to own it from defining the how, the design, all the way to implementation, and also supporting it in production. Right? So we don't have a separate operations team, for example. That's by design, because we embrace DevOps as a culture. And I think this merging of roles is in a similar vein, right? So someone who is defining the product should also be do it in a grounded way to say, okay, what is possible.
Right.
A lot of those like the tussles, the conflicts that used to be there go away because of that. Because
Absolutely.
and you have to be balanced on both sides.
I mean, I'm thinking back to my own experience before Techstrong. I was involved in several venture-backed startups.
Right.
And, now that you say you're doing it, it just like a light bulb. It makes perfect sense.
Right.
Because we would have a product team, and I was involved, in product.
Right.
And we had a vision for what the feature looked like. This is before DevOps. We're doing a release twice a year.
Yeah.
So we had a vision of what this feature would be and what that feature would be. And then we give that to the engineering team. And, they'd come back to us with some prototypes or MVP or whatever you want to call them back then.
Right.
And that's not what we were thinking.
No, right, exactly.
That's
exactly.
not what
so
we
you have
did.
to iterate and exactly. So
and so doing it, having one person own both of that, it's now that I think about it, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It works for some organizations. I mean, I wouldn't say like it's
you're right. It
like it's
depends
not a
on the
solution for everyone.
organization.
That's right.
But I think it's a forward way of looking at it.
Right.
Let's talk about CrowdStrike, though. You guys have had several product announcements during the week here at RSA.
Yep.
Why not, if you don't mind, share with our audience?
Absolutely. So super excited to talk about all of the announcements we made at RSA this week. The biggest one, I'll start with that, which to me is very exciting because it's a fundamental piece of technology that we're building. It's called CrowdStrike Asset Graph. What Asset Graph does is gives organizations a 360-degree view into all of their IT assets, their cloud assets, their mobile assets, their IoT assets, so all assets, but not just assets, also the configurations on those assets, the users and identities in their organizations.
Really? Okay.
And applications that are running deployed on those. But going even beyond that, it's also looking at relationships between all of those entities. So which users are logging on to which hosts, which applications are deployed on which hosts, are being used by which users. All of that as a holistic graph database. It is the first time that this is being done as a large-scale graph database with all of the relationships being incorporated in a truly schematized manner.
Absolutely.
So that's super exciting because I think it enables a lot of different scenarios. And the first one we are starting off with is our product Falcon Discover, which gives users the understanding of which hosts are managed meaning they have CrowdStrike Falcon sensor on them, which hosts are unmanaged, what applications are deployed, which versions do they have, which users have what kind of privileges, sort of giving you just a understanding, a visibility into your landscape. Because that to me is the biggest problem we have today, right?
Well, you're talking about fundamental security issues here, right?
That's right.
So number one is you can't defend what you don't know you have.
Absolutely.
Number two, look, I've been in this business for 25 years, right? You remember Big Fix?
Right.
IBM bought them 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
That was the whole Big Fix model, right? Is we can't fix, you got to know what you have.
You have to know what you have.
We can fix it.
Absolutely.
They didn't, and maybe I'm not blaming them, don't get me wrong, but we didn't have the technology then to go to the depth.
That's right.
That you're going.
I mean,
to
graph
now.
databases didn't exist. Like that's new, right?
I mean, we could tell what IP address and what that device said it was from that IP address.
That's right.
Applications, users, these kinds. We just didn't have. We didn't have that kind of information.
Yeah.
Number two, though, is the ability, like you said, manage devices, meaning there's some sort of agent, whether you want to call it an agentless agent or an agent.
That's right.
There's something on there.
Yeah.
But what we've seen is now the ability to do it on unmanaged devices.
Exactly.
Because again, it's easy to know what you have when you already have an agent on them.
That's right.
Chances are the ones we don't know are the ones that don't have that agent.
And that's a major problem for just even for compliance. Like, what coverage do I have? Do I have 100% coverage with the security tools that I'm supposed to be deploying?
Absolutely.
And in this remote first world, there are resources all over the place, right? That are popping up, that are part of the enterprise, but they are invisible to a large extent. Plus, shadow IT is a big thing. So all of those, like doing that sort of real-time updated 360-degree view into your assets and into your enterprise was a big hard problem. And one of the key things we solved within that is a problem of entity resolution, which is multiple data sources tell you about something, right? They may be telling you about, let's say, this computer, or another data source may be telling you some bits about the same computer, or could be about a different one. And how do you know if they're talking about two different things or two same things? Like one of the customers we were talking to was saying, hey, I have the same host name, the same IP address for two different computers on two different subnets, right? And we have to disambiguate that. So that's a hard problem of entity resolution that we've solved with this.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. We've got two more.
Yeah, two more. So the other one is we CrowdStrike recently acquired a company called Humio.
Yes.
Which is an index-free, schema-aware but schema-free data store. Infinitely scalable, live search. And what we're doing as part of this announcement is to connect CrowdStrike Falcon with Humio through Humio for Falcon. So that enables Falcon data to be seamlessly moved over into Humio, enables long-term retention in Humio for users to do their compliance requirements, their auditing requirements.
Love it.
As well as retrospective hunting and forensics, right? So something happened, Falcon detected it, prevented it, mitigated it, but now 6 months later, you want to say, hey, what exactly happened? When did they come in? All of that you can do with Humio, with that infinite fast search that we are making available. So that's the second announcement.
Excellent.
Right.
Actually, I think I've done an interview with someone from CrowdStrike on Humio /CrowdStrike on that.
That's right.
But that again, we didn't have that capability.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And now we do.
Yeah.
Last one.
Yeah. So the last one is around Falcon XDR. So XDR, as you obviously know, there's a lot of buzz around it, and lot of
almost as much as zero trust.
As much as zero trust. That's right. But we've been focused on making sure that XDR adds true value to customers, and as part of that, what we've done is integrated XDR, implemented the response part of XDR using Falcon Fusion, our SOAR framework that's built into the Falcon platform. So we've given it part of platform, not as a separate SKU. No one has to purchase it. You have it available as soon as you are a Falcon customer, and XDR is deeply integrating with that, leveraging it for all the response capabilities. And the second part is the XDR value is in the ecosystem. Which partners are part of it? How are you doing detections across multiple domains, multiple technologies, starting from EDR, but extending it out to all of the other domains. And as part of that, this week we announced addition of 3 additional partners: Mendo Security, for web and browsing, Vectra AI for NDR, and Ping Identity for
identity and access.
So all of these areas already have existing partners, and we continue to add new partners to deepen it, and more importantly, cover the technologies that our customers have deployed.
Those are also in each of their areas. These are leading companies.
That's right.
Real quality stuff there.
Yeah.
So this is. I sit here, I observe. I don't have to sell product, build product.
That's right.
I look at all the XDR buzz here.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if a lot of people have really got their XDR story right.
Right. I think there is. I mean, if you ask multiple people, you'll get multiple answers on what XDR even is. Right?
Well, this always happens at RSA, right?
Right.
Because you get a buzz and everyone's running with it.
That's right.
And it becomes extended. Remember, Microsoft used to use that term. We're going to extend it. Right?
Yes.
And
that's right.
Extension means a lot of different things.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we've been trying to be very, very crisp and clear on our XDR definition.
Yeah.
And really the key focus is to find detections, find alerts that one single domain would not have found.
Right.
So take weak signals from multiple different areas, from email security, from web security, from endpoint, from CASB. But because those weak signals are happening within a short window and they are correlated, you can say, oh, there is something really malicious going on here, even though each of those individually would not alert you.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea.
So it's a little more mature than some of the stuff I've seen running around here.
I hope so, yes.
Yeah, so that's good. So it sounds like you guys haven't been too busy then.
We are not too busy, yes.
What about impressions of RSA this week?
RSA has been fantastic. I mean, I think biggest thing I would say is people have been super excited about meeting everyone in person. I mean, this is 2 years, two plus years. We were here in March 2020. And towards the end of it, like people were not shaking hands, they were fist bumping, right? As the pandemic was starting, and now it's fantastic to see everyone here. So I was honestly pleasantly surprised with the traffic and the buzz, and yeah, I mean that energy is fantastic.
Keep in mind, it's still half of what it was.
It is still
in
half of
2019.
That's right.
But even half of RSA is a lot
huge.
More than any place. Exactly. So good stuff.
So I think that's great. And then, yeah, I mean, like, obviously we've had a lot of announcements. Other companies continue to do that. So there is a lot of momentum.
No, well, look, there's always stuff going on.
That's right.
In the cyber world. And you know, and traditionally RSA and then maybe Black Hat this summer is the place where it all kind of comes together and we see it in mass.
That's
but anyway, Amal, thank you very much, Alan, for being on our show.
I appreciate it.
Hey, we're live here at RSA. It's still quiet, but there's people on the escalators we see. We're going to be live here all day, wrapping up our coverage. We hope to see you back on. We'll be on in just a few moments.
Looking for a live conference focused on the tools, technologies, and practices most important to your business? Innotech conferences are live one-day business and technology conferences highlighting the latest in trends for IT leaders, developers, and IT professionals. Each event combines education, innovation, peer-to-peer networking, and the latest technology and business solutions for a diverse IT-focused audience. Innotech conferences occur throughout the year in strategic regional locations, bringing together technology professionals from various industries to learn about the solutions, practices, and tools impacting their day-to-day work and gain insight into what's to come. Presenters at Innotech conferences are selected and curated to ensure each session provides the most up-to-date and relevant information without any hype. Whether you're interested in digital transformation, cybersecurity, cloud, IT leadership, or DevOps, Innotech conferences deliver. 2022 events are scheduled to be held in Austin, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Houston, and Washington, D.C. Innotech conferences are produced by Techstrong Live and powered by Techstrong Group.
And I was like, hey, I'm super nervous about this. What are your tips? Should I be this nervous? And he was like, the second that you stop being nervous before you speak publicly, then you need to stop speaking. Because at that point, it's no longer passionate for you. The reason why that you get so nervous is because you care so much about it. And I think it's really important to be able to recognize when that is, and for me, like, I think this past year has been up and down, right? And I was still trying to rebuild myself and try to get my shit back together. But there came a point where the podcast, like, there were times when I just wanted to hang it up. I just get frustrated. Things weren't going the way I wanted to go. It wasn't enjoyable to the point where, I felt like I needed to do it. And at that point, I had to take some time off because I was like, there's something wrong here. And I'm not really sure what it is. Something's off. And then I realized once I took myself out of the picture of other places and just focused on what I enjoy doing and saying, fuck the rest of it, that's what really helped. And I think that it came with a cost. I ended up walking away from some chat servers for a while and just focusing on where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. Not so much where the group wanted things to go, but fuck, I started this, where do I want it to go?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's not necessarily you're going down the wrong path. Right. You don't want to go down the right path
for the wrong reason.
Such a fast speed and get burnt out either. Exactly. So there's nothing wrong with taking that step aside, taking time off, and coming back.
Well, I call it. You're either pivoting or you're just stepping back and going, okay, like you can pivot and keep going, or you can pivot and say, I'm not going to go that way because that's not my goal. That's not my goal. Yeah. Like, so yeah, I mean, I pivot all the time.
Yeah. Well, and you get in this mind frame that you got to keep going, keep pushing content, keep pushing content. And, a lot of times, like you keep pushing content, but you could be missing something. Right. You could be missing that next innovation that may take you some time to realize. And so, there's nothing wrong with that. I've done it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was one of the things that I really had to learn for myself is you can't push yourself to create content. Like it has to come from a natural place. It cannot be something that's forced because it shows in what you do. And I realized that when I look back at some of my interviews, I was like, that was a pretty shitty interview. But then I realized it was during a period of time where I just didn't want to fucking be doing it at that period of time. Yeah. But as a content creator, for me, the biggest battle is staying relevant, right? In the early days, I didn't want to miss a podcast. I didn't want to go a week without a podcast because I felt like if I did, I would lose that traction. I would lose that relevancy and I would lose those listeners. And I'd be right back to square one. And I felt like people expected me to do a certain thing. Did you ever go through a period of time like that?
I did. I forced, weekly podcasts up front because I felt like in this industry, that's the cadence that I had to follow. I felt like if I did any longer, beyond that, we would be talking about a breach, and I didn't want to put that out months later. And you know how aggressive our industry is with the timeline. So, I still do that. A lot of times I'll put content out when I can put it out, and that's really what it comes down to. I still have full-time work. I have 3 kids, so it's really difficult for me to put out an episode, faster than that. I would love to, and I try my best to do that. But sometimes it is once every 2 weeks. But I want to, I focus on quality too. Like, I want to be able to deliver quality, and I'm not going to rush that. So
yeah. And I think that's where I love supporting Mike and the Haunted Hacker because for me, I've thought about doing it multiple times, and I can't. I don't want to. There's too many great people. I'd rather support people in a lot of ways. That's. I feel like I'm a connector, but I also feel like if I did it, I would be so intense. It would just drive me insane. I'd want to get it out weekly, and then I wouldn't be happy with it, and then I would probably go into some mad depression, and probably it would be bad.
It's addictive. It's addictive.
I don't want to do that to I'm nah, I'll just help everybody else. I'm not saying I won't ever do it, but I mean, I don't know. I'd rather just hire somebody in social media, do stuff for me.
I mean, along with podcasting, speaking conferences, on top of everything else, it's you never want to tell anybody no because you don't want to be that person that doesn't get asked back. And so, I mean, there's so many pressures we put on ourselves as content creators that I think that a lot of people are completely oblivious to. And I mean, it's really cool that we can talk about this. Hopefully somebody else will listen to it and go, well, I'm going for that podcast, or let those guys do it. Just
I think you and I are we're not, it's not podcaster against podcaster. I'm not in that game at all to be competing with other podcasters. So I think this is a great conversation to show people that are thinking about that. We're supportive. We're supportive of you.
100%.
Well, and I think a new thing that's happening though is all the kids now, everybody wants to be a YouTube content creator. Not everybody. Well, I mean, hey, it's great, but you also can't like not everybody's going to be there. It's kind of like a basketball team or football. Like there's a lot of people on a football team. Not everybody is the quarterback. So like not everybody's going to get that paycheck they think they're going to make off of it. It doesn't mean don't try, but have realistic expectations. Like don't, like people are, we talk about how like this industry, like social media and all this is bad for kids and their mental health right now, and like we're trying to push them in. They want to be content creators. If they don't make it, like, what are we doing to these kids? Like,
and that's why avoiding that burnout is so crucial.
Yeah.
Like you have to be persistent, but you also have to know your limitation. Like don't get burned out, keep trying. You're going to keep improving over time. And, as Mike knows as well, when you first start, it's like, is this going to take off? Is it going to take off to my expectation? Yeah. But then it gets back to doing what you love and being passionate. So if those YouTube creators are doing something that they enjoy doing,
keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
100%. If it keeps you off the streets and keeps you out of trouble, fucking do it.
Yeah.
I remember when I made 1,000 subscribers to YouTube. It was just like a couple months ago. I think so. Maybe 4 months ago. But anyways, it was the coolest feeling. I was like, oh shit, I have 1,000 people who actually listen to my shit. And then I looked at the Spotify results and was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm in 50 fucking countries. That's really odd. Like, what do people listen to? Like, how does that come off to them? But yeah, I think a lot of it is just providing the content. And then the reactions I get from people are still shocking, when people appreciate what you do. Because I didn't do this for everybody else in the beginning. I did this for me. I did this to give back my own way and kind of sort through some shit that I was going through. And then it went from that discussion to a full-blown podcast. And those early days, like you said, man, those early days were crazy, bro. I'm talking like copious amounts of liquor, and maybe people would disappear from the podcast mid-podcast and pass out. I don't know. But it was crazy. It's crazy. It's good shit.
I think what you said, is the key to longevity, though. I think doing it for yourself, doing it, for your love, whether you have 0 listeners or 1 million listeners, would that stop you tomorrow? Tomorrow, if things change, would that stop you? And, I like to think of it that way.
Chris.
What's that?
I don't have your radio voice.
Chris definitely has a voice for podcasts, for sure.
Yeah.
I have a face for podcasts.
That too. And a voice.
And a voice.
Yeah, I tend to hide mine most of the time. So. But yeah,
that's why I do audio only, Mike.
Really? So you just audio? No, never
just
video.
Audio. So I have done some LinkedIn Live events. LinkedIn Live based interviews, and I do live shows now too, which is streamed over LinkedIn. So, those I have to do with video, but my standard release for my podcast is audio.
Yeah, see, I was thinking about that from the beginning. I started off with just video and audio on YouTube. And then when I found PodServe and realized that I could have it across all the streaming platforms, I'd already started the video piece of it. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe I should switch back to just audio. And then Techstrong picked up the video, and I was like, well, fuck that.
I just couldn't get down with the editing. Like with my concept, it would be an insane amount of time to edit video. Like I struggle with the audio piece.
Right.
But every now and then I still do audio, or I still do video. If this ever, I was ever able to parlay this into full time, I get more into video. I'm doing a documentary right now, which is video, but it's taking way longer than what I wanted to.
Are you doing it yourself or somebody else?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. What are you doing it on?
I'm doing it on the intersection of AI and cyber. Badass. And the future of AI and cyber. So, but yeah, it's coming along. It's just, like I said, I just don't have the time to put into it as I want, but it'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, there's never enough hours in a day. I mean, all the stuff that I do, I wish I could add another 5 hours to the 24 that we already have. Yeah. Just so I can get more shit done.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what do you do to balance yourself outside of work, podcasts, and all the good shit? What do you do for Chris to keep that balance?
That's a small window. That's a very small window. Right. So I have 3 kids. let's see, 23, 14, and
23, bro. 23.
23.
You're like 23.
No.
How's that possible?
No, I'm far beyond 23. So yeah, my youngest is 5. He keeps me young. And
on your toes.
on my toes. So yeah, that's pretty much where my time is dedicated to. Outside of that, sleep 2 or 3 hours a night and I'm good to go.
Are you teaching the 5-year-old stuff already?
What's that?
Are you teaching the 5-year-old stuff already? Like getting him into different stuff? Like,
soon.
Yeah.
Soon. Yeah, very soon.
My nephew just turned 8 and like he's all into tablets and gaming.
Okay.
What he thinks is gaming, and he watches content creators, even though he doesn't play the games like Roblox. I mean, he plays Roblox, but
oh yeah,
it's interesting. But I'm trying to like slowly, like I just got the Backdoors and Breaches. He won't be able to play it, but I want to like start showing him those things.
Oh,
and,
that's
like,
the Black Hills. Yeah.
Like. And
That's
like I had like their little magazine or whatever. So like I get it and like I'm going to show him and just kind of get him. Cause like part of it is I talked to his mom about like, hey, like, what are you doing for that? And she is good, like about, locking some stuff up, but she complains about how hard it is. But she goes, I know it's supposed to be that hard, but God, but at least she's doing that. And a lot of parents don't. But I mean, this is where they're going at 5 and 8. Like,
my son, my 5-year-old he'll watch content creators, YouTubers.
Yep.
And I think that's just taken over TV. Like that is TV.
Yeah, it's become TV.
Yeah,
for sure. So Kurt Swiesdak, he was one of the guests on the show last year. Good friend of mine. He was actually on Mr. Beast episode of Mr. Beast on YouTube.
Oh wow!
I was shocked. I was like, wait a minute.
Mr. Beast is like the #1 YouTuber.
Yes. So Kurt's former FBI. Oops, almost dropped my cat.
Darn lucky.
Yeah, Kurt is former FBI, and they had him on Mr. Beast, and Mr. Beast was being chased by Kurt, which is pretty cool. And at the end, Kurt caught him and got like a ton of cash. But I mean, yeah, Kurt said that it's legit. Like, the production and all that stuff is really cool. I had no idea who Mr. Beast was until I talked to one of the kids, and I was like, "What? Who?"
Yeah.
But
Rogan
they love that
had
stuff.
him on his podcast.
Oh,
So
really?
I learned about him through Rogan,
Nice.
and then I'm looking him up. I was like, "Is this really the #1 YouTuber?" And I looked him up, and he legit
Sure enough.
is. I mean,
yeah, big time. So, looking back at your guests, I know this is going to be a shitty question, and I know it's going to be pointed right back at me, but who was your favorite guest? Which story was like the most interesting or the most interesting episode of your podcast that you remember today?
I'll give you the one top of mind. How's that? Is that
Cool.
fair?
That's fair. That's fair.
So the
That
one
was a
top
shitty
of
question.
mind. No. The one top of mind is Joe Grand. So Joe Grand was on my show maybe a year ago. And he goes by the name Kingpin. He's a hardware hacker, and he helped start
Uh-oh. We lost you for a second.
Kingpin just took you down. We can't hear you.
Your audio's
Oh,
muted.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can
there
hear
you go.
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah, you froze right as you said Kingpin.
Oh yeah. So he goes by Kingpin. He helped found Loft Heavy Industries.
Nice.
Back in the 80s. So he's like super into hardware hacking and a super cool dude, man. Like super great personality. And we just got to talking about hardware hacking. And at the end of the interview, he was like, "Man, I got to fly out to LA tomorrow. I'm filming this I can't talk about it, but I'm filming this show and it's going to be big. It's going to be big. Just keeping, bookmark my YouTube. It's going to come out."
Nice.
And about 6 months later, he sent me a link, and it was a trailer for a show that he's doing where he's hacking Bitcoin wallets. Nice. And he hacked his Bitcoin wallet that had like, I don't remember how much money in it, but like $1 million in his Bitcoin wallet.
Wow.
And he hacked it and he got it. And then the reason this is top of mind for me was because last week he did it again. And I think I posted it on YouTube. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. This Kingpin is an absolute beast. And this guy, he came in, he was like, I got $6 million in Bitcoin on this Samsung Galaxy 3. He was like, I bought it in 2014 or whatever. I don't remember my swipe pattern to get back into the phone. So basically, I won't go through the whole story, but Joe Grand goes in and he basically hacks the Samsung S3, retrieves the swipe pattern from the file system, and I'll let you watch it to see if he recovers his $6 billion. But he's still doing it, man. He's still doing it, and again, just a great, awesome dude. And he's going to come back. I told him, I pinged him after I watched. I was like, you got to come back now. And we got to talk about this because that's what he does now. He hacks Bitcoin wallets for. He's trying to get more because it's not a common issue that you run into, but he's trying to get more into Bitcoin wallet hacking. So anybody out there,
if you only have if you take a percentage, 1% off of 6 million, like that's all right, payday.
It's a payday, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and people are willing to pay that because I think it's more common than not. I just don't think a lot of people realize that they have it. People that may have invested it, long ago, but yeah, episode 30, Kingpin, check it out.
Definitely gonna check that out for sure. I do a lot of mobile hacking, so I love anything that has to do with mobile phones or any apps on mobile phones. Like that's my bread and butter. I really, really enjoy it. I think my most interesting guest and the most entertaining that I've had, they've all been really great, really entertaining, but Captain Zap, Ian Murphy, by far, the captain, was probably the most epic couple of episodes I've done. That man, I mean, his stories and his life in general just fascinates me. And there's nothing better than the old grandpa who's, crazier than a loon, but fun as hell. And that's Ian Murphy. He's not doing too good health wise, but he's a great dude.
I think the underlying story with everyone you talk to is key. Like everybody, has their unique path coming through. But just being able to extract that from people, and getting to know them as a person. Yeah. That's important for me to put through to the audience.
I always tell people like one of the parts of podcasting I really enjoy is making new friends, because some of these people I may not run into, or I may not cross paths with, but the conversations we have, it's like we've known each other forever, because it's a really cool conversation, and they know it's going towards a good cause, and giving back is really important. But on top of all that, I think as podcasters, we're leaving a historical documentation, video and audio of what shit was like for us. Right. Cybersecurity is fairly new. If you look back at the medical industry, right, or even medical care, and you look back at some of the old stories about when medicine was first starting out and surgeons were using cocaine on people to numb certain spots or numb them. Yeah. And there's that little bit of documentation, books and stuff. But think about what's going to be like for us, like 100 years when cybersecurity evolves into something else and people look back and go, oh shit, we have hours upon hours of podcasts of these people that build all this shit. Yeah. I mean, to me, I think it's invaluable.
You're helping build that archive.
Yeah. But think about what we've been through. And like, I thought about before my grandmother passed, like she was 90 something. I mean, in 90 years, how technology has changed. I mean, like we used to have to like, dial phones on a wall with a cord, and like kids these days are like, what the hell? Like, how is this possible? Like that they don't understand. I mean, that's how rapidly it's changed. And so, I mean, it's going to be pretty freaking amazing to see what, the next 100 years, like,
well, not even 100, like look at how fast technology's moved. And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but if you look back at Roswell, right? In Area 51, in a crash that happened in Roswell, New Mexico. The amount of technology that the U.S. military and government have developed just in a short period of time. We're talking 40 years. We're not even talking like 100 years or 200 years. We're talking about a very short window, and we advanced that far. Imagine what's going to be like in 90 years. Like that just blows my mind. As a kid, Atari was, to me, that was like a huge advancement technology. Like I could sit and play shit on my TV, and now kids are doing it on their phones. It's amazing.
It can't get better than this.
If it does, we're in trouble.
What I think about too is like all the kids that are the digital natives playing these games on their phone. Like, think about like how our brain started going, like, pinging off that like our parents didn't have, right? So like they had maybe a TV or whatever, and like as a child, like what we absorb is so intense, right? So, I mean, what these kids will be able to come up with, like, is absolutely nuts. I mean, they're like, maybe we'll start using like 15-20% of their brain.
They're already out of control, though. The kids are already way out of fucking control.
Oh, yeah.
And part of me really hates it because I hate seeing kids suffer like that. But part of me is almost glad because I get to mentor those kids and I get to help those kids. Because if they were left to their own devices and instruction at school and parents, we would have a world full of cyber criminals in like 40 years.
Yeah.
But the good thing is they're getting identified quick and they're being handed off for mentoring and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. I've had a great time with Dan Kelly. You should have Dan Kelly on your show. He was the one who did Talk Talk.
I talked to him.
Oh, you did?
I talked to him. Yeah, Dan Kelly. Yep.
Good dude. Good dude.
Okay.
He's really timid when it comes to doing a podcast. He's really hesitant about it, but I keep encouraging him. You've got a great story and, you're doing great things and people need to know that you've made that change. I think that's really important for, the kids that I work with is to come out and show, hey, look, I'm not that same person. Yeah. Give me a fucking job.
Yeah.
But our industry is so infamous at wanting to have that mystique and that hacker and the hoodie to take to all the potential clients. But then when it boils down to it, and it's time to hire somebody like that, they're like, wait a minute, we have some problems with that. Yeah. So I'm trying to help change that. And I think it's important. Like besides podcasting, besides work, what are your other passions besides your kids and your family and your work? Is there anything that makes Chris take a minute and go enjoy something by himself? Or what is it that keeps you in the game?
Oh man, like I said, man, it's a small window.
Am I the only one that works 24 hours a day?
No, definitely. I think I work 25 a day. I think I've hacked time.
Sweet. Sweet.
I mean, anything that's technology, that's cutting edge, really is interesting to me. I have a 3D printer. I 3D print time to time.
Nice.
And yeah, man, really that's it, man. I just got a Jeep Wrangler, so I'm having fun with that.
Just some off-road shit.
Just some off-road shit, man. We've been doing some camping, which is cool. And I think that's important to point out is that if you stay immersed behind a screen all day, like you have to get out. Like you have to get out. And I think that's sort of my outlet is just, taking the family camping, just getting outdoors, getting some fresh air and just to reset. You know what I mean? Even if your passion is behind a screen, you still have to reset.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So give your eyes a break, or else you'll have to wear these trendy glasses that me and Chris are wearing, and you're not cool unless you have these type of glasses. So,
right. It took a long time.
Exactly. Making old look good in 2022. But 3D printing, I love 3D printing. I've got 2 printers, actually 3. 2 of them are cranking away right now. But I actually started a business on accident. Started printing something and thought, well, let me throw it up on Etsy, see what happens. Bro, it's been nonstop orders since I started. Like I paid for my printers. I paid for my printers probably 4 times now in 1 month.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, are you selling original designs?
Some of them, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome, but the highest selling one right now is a Gothic lantern that I print the entire thing, the inside, the outside, the chains, the post to put on the wall. Yeah, I just
send me the link, man. Send me the link. I want to check it out. Cool. I haven't printed anything in a while, so that'll give me an excuse to start printing again.
I love printing, man. It was just the idea. Like I bought it in December of last year after my boss got one. He talked me into it. So I've been waiting for a long time because we all know 3D printing when it first started out, the printers back then. And this was like early 2000s when 3D printing first hit home use. But those printers were like 10 grand a piece. So it totally not in my price range. So I thought I'll wait to get into 3D printing until they're affordable. So my boss got one and he contacted me. He's like, hey, bro, I just got this badass 3D printer. You should see what this thing does. And I'm like, how much did it cost you? Like 10 grand? He's like, $250. I was like, oh, you son of a bitch. Done. I had to go out and get it. Yeah. But yeah,
same with me. I wasn't the first to get one either. Like I had a coworker that got one and he brought in, this cube that he printed or whatever. I was like, oh man, that's awesome. And then I got hooked, man. I think I'm either on my second or third printer right now.
What kind of printer do you have?
Right now I got a FL Sun Pro. Nice. It's a Delta printer. Nice. And I love it because it's got the auto leveling. It's very, light maintenance. But it's also easy to work on too. So if you have to swap out, a print nozzle, it's not difficult.
Dude, the bed leveling, when they came out with the BL Touch and CR Touch for the Ender Crealities, that totally changed the game. The bed leveling used to piss me off so bad when I first got my printer because you could never get it just right. There would always be one corner that was just fucked or something.
It is. Kim, can you relate to this? Did you have a 3D printer? No.
No, the only one I've ever used is in the museum up in the Science Museum in Chicago, and they had like a little lab, and I went in there. And I still have my little thing, and like it looks like a little alien, but whatever.
Nice. So there's a new printer coming out, and it's not in stores yet. A guy from MIT created it. I just saw a video on it this week. It's literally a vat full of this gel. It's almost like the consistency of hand sanitizer. And then the printing nozzle goes into the gel, and it actually prints freeform inside the gel.
Carves it out?
Yes. No, it doesn't carve it out. It uses the gel as sort of like a pool. And then the filament and the nozzle are all like one scope, and it goes down into it. So it cools it on impact, right? So it binds it together. And instead of having like a printing surface and having to be level, no, bro, this shit is suspended.
It's interesting.
So MIT, a guy at MIT came out with it. I just saw the video. I don't know. It's probably way off from being on shelves, but the idea of suspension printing, I think, is fabulous because the printing surface alone on some of these printers, it's not very big. And printing space is optimum for cash. I mean, it's super expensive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say that would be a really good use for like, when they get around to the, like the organs and stuff like that they're talking about for like hospital use and, veins and stuff like that. Like that'll be super.
You have to have zero error of margin when you're talking about that. So, but yeah, I think that's, and you see them, You ever see the 3D printed houses?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the guns and the motorcycles, and all kinds of shit.
Yeah. It's insane.
They have full-on competitions on 3D printed guns, which I thought was just amazing. There's a documentary.
I found that. I knew about the guns, like, because that's, that's been a big thing for a long time. I still want, like, this is terrible. I still want, like, an ice pistol from, like, back in the day.
Oh.
Like, the molds or whatever. I just want it because it supposedly works. I'm like, I want to see one in action. Like, how does this thing work?
So we're at the end of the hour, and it's gone by so fucking quick. Dude, it's been a pleasure having you on. It's been a real honor to have you. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me on, man. And I'd love to get you on Barcode at some point. We can talk anti-government or whatever's in your lane, man.
Let's talk hacking androids.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Calm down. Yeah, so it's been a pleasure. And, if there's anything that we can do for you, let us know. And before we sign off, any last words for listeners or new people in cyber that you think is super important?
Listen to Haunted Hacker and Barcode and
Right.
you will be.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Do it.
That's it.
Right on. Well, I'll catch you guys there. It's been great,
Chris.
and we'll talk to you guys next weekend.
Yeah, thank you guys. I
Bye.
appreciate it. Take care.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. You've joined the Open Mainframe Show. We're glad to have you here. You probably have guessed I'm not Alan Schimmel and don't look anything like him, though he and I have worked together for a long, long time, or business partners, friends, etc. But I'm stepping in, just filling in for Alan while he's doing some traveling this week. And I have a great pleasure because, I've spent a good part of my career in the mainframe environment, and it's fun to be talking about what's happening and all the great things. But the best part of it is to get to talk with this panel, this group of people, and co-host John Murtick. How you doing, John?
I am doing fabulous here in my lovely office, surrounded by all these computers staring at me here.
How could you not be? I feel like I'm, going to the computer museum almost. Not quite really far back, but fairly recent. But good stuff.
Yes.
Vintage stuff. It's fun. It's awesome how people are collecting and refurbishing and restoring. It's kind of like the classic car version of the tech industry, right?
Exactly. Everything comes back around in time. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a great panel here, and we'll get right to that. So, Stacy, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at SUSE?
Absolutely. I'm Stacy Miller. I'm with SUSE. I'm one of the product marketing managers here, responsible for our SLES on Z product and our Renter on Z product. And I am also on this great Open Mainframe Project board as the marketing co-chair. And I get to work with this great panel, and I'm super excited about the conference coming up.
Awesome. Fantastic. Elizabeth, you kick things in next. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Elizabeth K. Joseph, and I am a developer advocate at IBM. Open source has always been, for decades, has been incredibly important to IBM. And in general, in the mainframe space, open source has been a thing before open source had a name in the mainframe space, and IBM has always been very deep into that. So it's really exciting to be part of this project and part of the upcoming summit. In my role in the Open Mainframe Project, I do a bit of work on the software discovery tool as well as the Linux distributions working group.
Fantastic. How about you, Jacob?
So within the Broadcom, I'm a product owner responsible for the API mediation layer, and I'm very excited to present a few sessions on the Open Mainframe Summit. And I'm doing this as a Zoe chair. So I'm responsible for the most popular open source project on the platform at the moment. And it's exciting work and exciting future coming.
Love a conversation. We're talking about mainframe and open source and Summit. So fantastic. We're talking about the Open Mainframe Summit that's going to be happening as part of the Convene conference coming up in Philly on September 21 and 22. John, I'm sure everybody in our audience, maybe most everybody's heard about Convene. Could you sort of set the stage about what Convene is and what we're doing for the first time, right, with Open Mainframe Summit is happening as part of that kind of a meetup as part of the event?
Yeah, so this event, this is actually the third year of the event, but the first 2 years we had this little thing called COVID that kept us having the conference and places like this here. But so for the first time, we are all getting together in person in Philadelphia at the Convene Center. It's really designed as sort of an event that brings together the mainframe community and the open source community, and that convergence, because what we're seeing more and more is that the future of mainframe is really driving towards open source. And more importantly, we're seeing as enterprises continue to be very forward thinking, they already are investing in open source, and they're seeing bringing their mainframe into that circle, but using open source as that gateway into it. And we see that with projects like Zoe and Feilong and a number of other ones we work with here. So it's a really unique opportunity that brings together these great audiences. This year is a really interesting focus for us. Security has been a huge thing on our collective radar for the past year or so. And particularly when it comes to things like supply chain security and really understanding where your software is coming from. And in the mainframe world, that's really always been a very important concept, because these systems power our society. These mainframes go down. Len Santusia, who's our board chair, would joke me and say, "Hey, John, if the mainframes go down, planes fall out of the air, commerce stops, all of this." And he's not entirely wrong, because so much of the backbone of our societal infrastructure relies on it. And as we're starting to see all of that become so more interconnected, understanding your software becomes really important. Understanding best security practices becomes really important. And so we're seeing that as a really, really big focus of the event, along with things of looking towards the future workforce, great projects like Zoe, diversity, and a number of other topics. So it's a fabulous way our community gets to come together, build some great networking, build some really nice opportunities for commingling. And, it's great for us. We can actually get together in person. We've been waiting for this for 3 years.
Well, it's about time, right?
Yes.
Go ahead,
and
Steve.
virtually too. We still have a virtual component as well, but you can be in person in Philly.
And John, I was just going to say, it's so key that we're talking about security, because, Susan just recently did a survey, and 45% of enterprises it's saying that 45% of enterprise will have experienced some kind of cyber attack by the year 2025. And 53% of decision makers they're continuously monitoring their supply chains, especially their software supply chains, for critical vulnerabilities, because cyber attacks have just really risen in the last 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting too. The cyber attacks, I love stats like that, because my view is probably most of those organizations have already been attacked. We don't talk about it. We're being more open about it. Yeah. I mean, it is so prevalent. You were jumping in, I think, Jacob.
Yeah, I was just wanting to say that this is what we are seeing with Zoe as well. Like the execs and the decision makers are coming and saying, "Hey, how do you do the security? Is it good enough? Are these things somewhere visible? When can we learn? What do you do and why?" So like what you are saying is exactly what we are also seeing on the project level.
Yeah, and speaking on the open source side of things, there are still questions about the security around open source. And so I love that this is the theme this year, because we want to just come out in the forefront with that and say, like, yes, this is secure. We're making efforts to make sure that the software is secure with some of the new initiatives that the Linux Foundation is having the projects do.
Right, and I think the marriage of what companies like SUSE and IBM are doing with open source and the hardware that IBM is coming out, the Z16 platform, that marriage is really key to the security of these companies.
Interesting. So say a little bit more about the relationship of open source into this kind of software stack of the mainframe environment. It's because there might be a perception of it's kind of a new or add-on. My view is it's much more, it's really a critical part of the stack, just as much as it is in virtually any other environment. Agree?
Yeah, and I kind of hinted at this in the beginning. It's, through our communities and organizations like Share, which has been around since the 1950s, there has always been a collaboration of software and tooling and really development of the software on the mainframe, even if it wasn't necessarily called open source, and some of it was, not open source, but there was always been this collaboration community there. And then now it's kind of just leveled up, whereas like with a lot of the modernization efforts, a lot of what's being driven there is open source software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to sound like I disagree, but with the NDAs around everything that touches mainframe, like some parts of development in open source around mainframe is really painful occasionally.
Yeah, and just from a SUSE perspective, again, SUSE Linux has been around for a long time, and we've been partners with IBM for more than 20 years. So we've really been a big proponent of open source on the mainframe.
Yeah, that's certainly not new to the mainframe. I mean, it's been involved with the mainframe, I think, at least a better part of my career, for sure. I'm curious, too, what were the last two open source summits like, and what do you think will be different in addition to being in person and having the theme be security this year? Maybe, John, that's a good one for you to think about.
Maybe I'll kick it off, and then I would really like, the feedback from all of you, because I mean, you've been to the first two editions as well, and so you can provide some great context. I think our first year, we were all sort of in a bit of a pandemic year, and it was really just highlighting this community was there and what it looks like, because I don't think anybody's been able to really put a finger on it. And the first time of it really coming together, showcasing what it's all about, showcasing a lot of the great projects and work that's happening, I think was really eye-opening for a number of folks. And it really started to propel a lot continued technical investment by new organizations, new projects, and things like that coming out of it, which is very similar to what we see a lot of times with events. You get the people together, you get the smart people together, and cool stuff happens. And that's really what our goal is to put these sort of spaces together. And I think last year we just continued to build upon that trend, but also starting to look at how this industry is changing from a diversity standpoint, from an age standpoint. We're seeing new people come into this space, and really starting to highlight that there's a big transformation beginning to happen. And it's one part of the people, but it's another part of the tools and technologies, and really starting to kind of take everyone mentally forward to that next area, but then also seeing how that interconnects with other areas of open source. And we had a great keynote from Tracy Regan, who is the executive director for the CD Foundation, which really dug into how DevOps and the mainframe are connected. We had keynotes on cloud native and the mainframe connected together. It's really funny because you sit on the outside and you think, oh, geez, like how do these fit together? Well, with open source, it all does fit together, and enterprises are thinking this way. So it was a great sort of transformational step forward to how do those other communities, how do these other technologies play in here? And then I think this year, then it builds upon that of like, here's the collective thing that we're all wrestling with, is security. And that's really where that next piece comes in there. But I would really want to hear from all of you, because you've been here since the beginning too. And what would you think? I mean, is that an accurate representation?
Yeah, John, I think one of the things I'm super excited about this conference and being in person is really seeing the generational collaboration. Because you do have people that I think will be coming to the conference that have been in the mainframe space for 20, 30 years. And then you've got college kids that are also really interested in the new technologies, like what's going on in cloud native, what's going on in containers. How do you translate that into the mainframe space? So I think that collaboration of generations is going to be a really exciting part of the conference.
I'm also really looking forward to what we call the hallway track, which, just getting to see people again in person, because the last two summits, they were really exceptional from a technical level. Like I learned a lot at the sessions. It was really valuable, but it's sort of, we kind of had some chat, but it's not the same as being there in person and just meeting with people. And I had a taste of this because John, when I first met you, I think was at the Open Source Summit. There was a mini summit for the Open Mainframe Project in 2019, And that was one of my introductions to the mainframe community. And it wasn't very big, but it was formative for me because it allowed me to actually sit and meet people and start to get an understanding of what people were looking for in the open source space. And that has been missing in these virtual events. So I'm very excited to see everyone in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, it's a team. Like, the main difference is we will see each other. We will have time to chat, drink a beer together, and after a few years working together, like, the sessions will be like maybe better, maybe worse, maybe the same, but ultimately the difference is gonna be that you will have the time around them, and that you will also have all the time dedicated to the conference. So, like, you will see even sessions that you didn't know that they are interesting for you.
Yeah, I love Elizabeth, the hallway track.
Worse, that's for sure.
Yeah. The hallway track idea. That's a perfect description. And I think when you get back together, you realize how much we missed that and how valuable it really is. It's great to do things online and virtual, but boy, it's so valuable. You get so much done. You make so much kind of progress, relationships, business, all of that stuff. I'd like to kind of tease apart security. Security is a very wide and broad topic. And what do you anticipate some of the things that we are going to be talking about? I mean, you mentioned supply chain. That's a big topic, of course, in the security world. Maybe Jacob, from a Zoe perspective, what do you think some of the conversations are going to be about for security in addition to supply chain?
Well, in general, the team is shift left. Like, we are moving and integrating the security in our development processes. We are integrating and exploring solutions to make sure that the security is not added as another layer, but it's just baked into the process. And I think that lots of the discussions are going to be about how far is it possible to get in the open source, how good the results are, and what we can do better. And not just us as a project. Like, I think that within Zoe, we are doing quite a good job around this and trying to share all this information, but also what we do around all of our dependencies and whether we even know what they are and how they are doing their job. So this is definitely the biggest part from my side.
How about from IBM perspective, Elizabeth?
Stacy had already mentioned the tie from hardware and software in how that plays into security. And one of the things that I've been seeing increasingly is the Linux distributions themselves, tying even more into that hardware. Because I think it's, a lot of it was written more with COS in mind, but as the Linux distributions are adding more things to the kernel and more things are being put upstream, there's just a tremendous amount of support for the mainframe today for security on Linux as well. And then the other component of this is, really the modernization story. And when companies are looking to the cloud, what is their security story there? What are their options? And we now have mainframe offerings in the cloud. And so that's an interesting story there as well.
Yeah, and just to play out that, I know that one of the keynotes is going to be, about how to do safe cloud native services with zero trust in mind. So I think just that whole, how do you take these newer disruptive technologies and keep them safe?
Yeah, the whole container security, microservices security, all of that cloud native, that is a big topic in general, of course. And then they're talking about doing that in a mainframe or combined environment, right? It's interesting. One of the things that I can't remember who mentioned this, but maybe it was you, Jacob. It's always fun to talk about the latest attacks and the threats and the threat landscape and things like that. But a lot of security discussions are what you mentioned, Jacob, just talking about what you are doing from a security standpoint, through the development process, the distribution of code, even the people, education and training and skills. That's super valuable right there. I mean, you can walk away with a lot of really good ideas and information to go back to your team, your company, your environment and say, this is something we can do. And frankly, I feel much better. I know even more about all the things that are being done. So I'm, instead of a black box, I have an idea what's happening for security and the hardware, the software, the OS, et cetera. Well, great. I'd love to hear some more about the diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a super important topic. It's being talked about, in the security world, how we continue to develop and lift up people and bring people into the environment in their careers and open up the field to more people. How do you view diversity, equity, and inclusion in the kind of mainframe open source environment? You mentioned, Stacy, that it's not news that we have some folks that have been doing this for a while, right? So we have the age diversity covered, I think, pretty well. What are some of the things the community either is doing or maybe needs to do to help continue to make progress?
Well, I think, part of it is projects like the Open Mainframe Project really they're welcoming projects. We welcome women, people of color, diverse groups into the society. And we give them the tools to learn the technologies. So I think, a conference like the Open Mainframe Summit kind of builds on that, where, it's not just, it is a diverse group that's going to come, and we try to bring people along with us with some of the newer technologies that appeal to this, the younger generation, the more diverse generation.
Also say that meeting people where they are has been really important to a lot of the work that I do. And I mean this in regards to the type of folks that we outreach to in things like the Franklin apprenticeship programs and at universities. One of the organizations I recently worked with, it works with mothers who are re-entering the workforce, whether or not they have a technical background. And we work with organizations who can help them get onboarded on mainframe skills. We also work with a veterans group. So we're bringing in veterans and getting them training through apprenticeship programs. And that, it turns out it naturally creates diversity in terms of gender and racial diversity and even geographic diversity. And that has been like a key push. And I think we're starting to see the impact of that at our events, which is exciting to see at places like Share.
I don't really have that much to add. Like, we are trying to build a well-working community in Zoe, and I'm rather sure that as far as geographically and in plenty of other ways, we are succeeding, but that's it.
One of the things that's really kind of connected with me that I've heard multiple times is when someone is in a group that hasn't been represented before, and they see someone like themselves, in whatever dimension that is, saying, I see someone up there giving a keynote talk who I can connect with because, whatever it is. Or I see someone in a role. I see someone starting an open source project. I see people that are like myself. And that tells them that I can do this too. And really, it's amazing the power of that. I mean, I think I never really appreciated the value of that alone. Of that tells each of us and tells a larger community that may not know that yet, that it is not only possible, we want it. We're looking for it. We want to bring you in to be part of that community. I mean, John, I have to believe that's an important part of the Linux Foundation and, your leadership that you're bringing through the Open Mainframe Project.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at all of our projects, we firmly believe that with diverse groups, you get better outcomes, and you bring a larger community together, and it really starts to showcase, the power of more, and the power of different opinions, the power of different backgrounds. A number of our projects have diversity focuses. We participate in the Making Our Strong Community Stronger initiative here within the mainframe space. And additionally, even at this event, just like all Linux Foundation events, we really spend a lot of time making sure it can be a very welcoming place. We drive to make sure that all of our panels have, diverse people and, female representation on them. We spend a lot of time looking at our schedule and looking at our speaker lineup and making sure we're getting people from different backgrounds, different genders, races, ethnicities. Last year, we actually achieved the Chaos Group, which is a Project Linux Foundation, set requirements for diverse events. And we actually achieved a gold badge last year. We're applying for it this year. We're still in the process. I'm hoping we turn out the same way. But we put a lot of effort into it. And even on site, we were holding a diversity luncheon on the first day, which is hosted by Broadcom, which is really an opportunity for those groups to come together. It's not just, for women and minorities, but it's really for everyone who has a ton of interest in really making sure that this space is one that can continue to grow, but continue to grow to bring others in as a part of it. And, that's really, just what we're seeing out there. And it's exciting that we're seeing that. It's, I love to see sort of communities like this start to see that as really an important facet. And this one is no shortage of that.
I think it's a big factor in the growth of the community too. It's huge.
Absolutely.
It's a big difference. Kind of a sort of funny correlation here. You can think about inclusion. This is both an in-person and virtual event. And I know that you're doing some things to make the virtual experience, just as valuable and part of the entire event. I mean, including things like mentorship, talking about what things are happening in the Open Mainframe Project and working groups, things like that. Anybody want to just say anything about if you're joining virtually, here's what you might expect to see and experience there?
Well, I could just say from the platform aspect, the platform we're using is the same one we use across a number of our other Linux Foundation events. We've had a lot of great feedback on it. Being virtually, it is not going to be the same as being in person. There's no doubt about it. But we really do try our hardest to help bridge a lot of that gap, making sure that all of our sessions you can watch live through the platform. You can provide feedback to speakers during it. All of our sponsors, in addition to having booths there at the event, they will also have virtual booths available so that you'll be able to interact, with them as well. And there's just also just a number of great, collaboration, forums and things like that are a part of the platform that you'll be able to leverage. And we actually will probably have a few of our speakers that will actually be presenting remotely to people in person. So there's going to be a little bit of that dynamic as well. I mean, we really want to make sure that this is an event. And I think, Mitch, I'm sure you're seeing across a lot of events is the appreciation for that virtual audience, not really just because of COVID, but just because it can be very difficult for a number of reasons for people to attend events in person, whether that would just be a funding aspect, a family aspect, a number of other, pieces as well. I think we're really fortunate to be able to provide this opportunity, and we're hoping that just continues to bring in an even greater community into these events. And with that, it's even a little bit of a lower cost to be able to attend that way, which I know can be easier on people that might not have a lot of the financial backing.
Well, and I mean this seriously, given the rate of flight cancellations and lost luggage, you may find yourself stuck somewhere, and so you can still attend.
Right. I think for some people, they might even prefer it that way.
Well, I hope it doesn't happen, but
I hope not.
I would just say.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Stacey.
Oh, sorry, John. I didn't mean to interrupt you. But I would just say, as an attendee, if you're coming as an attendee and virtually, go to the sessions. The speakers will be there. Ask questions. Use the chat features. As somebody who's presented on some of these virtual conferences, we want to hear from you. Mm-hmm. So if you're coming to the conference virtually, please participate. It's we want to answer your questions. We want to give you the information that you need to take it back to your industry or your company and be successful. So, don't be afraid to ask the questions that you would ask if you were in person.
Take advantage of it. What that makes me think of, Stacey, oftentimes events will have programs or at least some planning around first-time attendees. How do you create that welcoming experience so they aren't overwhelmed by a big event and so many things going on? What should I do? Where do I go? Where should I spend my time? I haven't done this before. Given we have so many people joining the community, why don't we do that as a kind of a wrap-up question? What are recommendations that each of us have if you're going to be in person? You had some great ones for virtual too. If you're a newcomer, either this is the first time or you haven't been to very many of these, how do you get the best experience? Elizabeth, do you mind starting out?
Yeah, I just want to encourage people to say hello to other people and don't be too shy. Like I am terribly shy in person, and it's just getting out of my shell and getting out of my comfort zone. And sometimes you'll see people talking and you'll be like, oh, I don't know if I'm welcome over there, but like just bust in and say hello. It's fine, and it's even if it is people who are work standing there with people from their company, like it's helpful, and everyone is quite welcoming at these events. And I think you'll have some really good conversations, and it's way better than just going into a corner and just being quiet. But I mean, if that's you, that's okay too. But I just encourage you, like, don't feel like you're being an imposition. We're all there to meet each other and talk.
Yeah, and when you've been on a session with the people in the room, there is at least one topic that you share, apart from the fact that you like open mainframe and the fact that you have something to do with mainframes and open source. So just go there, ask, talk.
Yeah, I mean, I would just third that, right? I mean, you're going to the event, make the best use of your time. Go talk to people, talk to your colleagues, talk to your friends, talk to people you don't know. Use the hallway track and talk to people as you walk down the hallway. You never know where you're going to pick up. And I think people are just a lot more welcoming than you might think they are.
Yes. And if you're not sure, look at their badge. Everyone, we do this on all of our LF events, which I think is a really cool thing. You can have a little tag on it that is like green, yellow, or red. Green means, yeah, talk to me. I love to talk to people. Yellow is, a little bit, I guess, stranger danger. If you know me, talk to me, but otherwise not. And red is, please leave me alone. So, definitely make sure you're respecting people's communication, but also know that if you're coming there and you're a little shy, there's a way to communicate that without, being rude or kind of getting yourself into an uncomfortable position.
The thing I would add is, I think, at least I do, I think many of us approach these things feeling a little bit inadequate. Like I know I'm not the smartest one there. I don't want to ask a dumb question. I don't want people to know I don't know some, certain things or whatever. But everybody's going there to learn, right? You're not just going there to have fun. Yes, we're having fun and connect with people, but you're going to learn stuff. Whether you're the keynote expert, guess what? The keynote expert isn't an expert at everything. They're there to learn too. Or you're new to it. And one of the things I found is, I've been surprised to find, is that when you ask a question, there's probably a dozen other people who have the exact same or very similar question. And they, like you, were not sure, confident about asking it. So, it's the fear of not knowing, don't worry about it. We all don't know a lot of things, and we're there to learn. So, and there'll be other people who will appreciate by you bringing it up or talking to the speaker or going to the microphone or putting it in chat. It's super helpful.
As like a speaker, and you make me feel really smart when you ask easy questions. So.
Well, the speaker secret, if you don't know the answer, is like, talk to me after the talk. That's the easy out I've used before, Mike, because I don't really know the answer to that, but I will find out and talk to you about it. Just kidding a little bit. I actually did have one more question, and maybe John, at the end here, you can kind of take us out with a message to folks that we hope will attend. Have there been surprises, something you didn't expect to happen at maybe one of the last conferences that we went to? I went there expecting this to happen, and I met up with these people I worked with 10 years ago, or, I got involved in a project I had no plans on doing. Any sort of unexpected, pleasant surprises that might have happened?
Oh, I don't really know what to say. That's why I was quiet.
No, okay. Anybody have one?
I think I'll repeat what I said before about like just talking to people and remembering how valuable it is just to meet people in person at the event. And I'm always surprised by the conversations I have, the connections that I make that I didn't expect. It really is a tremendously important thing.
Yeah, and I'm just going to second that again, I'm going to use the term hallway track, because I think that really is some of the most important conversations I've had have been walking down the hallway and just having that 5-minute conversation, and it sparks something and you're off and running.
Yeah.
I've also been surprised at. I forgot that I walk away with action items and to-dos and things I was going to follow up on, right? Whether it's I'm talking to you for years and let's go do this, or new communities, new people, or vendors, or whatever it might be. There's always stuff after the event that help carry forward whatever you got from it as well. Well, John, Open Mainframe Summit, Philadelphia, September 21st and 22nd, right?
Yep, you got it. openmainframesummit.org. You can head right to the website. You can see the full schedule. You can register if you're a company. We have 3 great sponsors represented here, IBM, Broadcom, and SUSE, which will have booths at the event. They're some of our leading sponsors, and we really thank them for that stewardship and that their commitments to these communities. But we also have sponsorship opportunities available. If you're a company that's thinking this might be an audience for you, we got places for you. But more importantly, we just want to see you, whether, it's in person would be great. And if it's virtual, that's even great too. Because there's some amazing content that's going to be driven here. There's going to be some great connections and some pretty fun announcements too that we're working on. So keep an eye towards September.
Yeah, some new news.
Yes.
That's exciting too. Well, great. It's been fun doing this open mainframe session with all of you, show with each of you. It was a real privilege to get to fill in for Alan. I'm going to kind of keep him busy more. I'll come back if you'll have me.
Come back anytime, Mitch.
Okay, great. You've been very, very gracious too. Thanks for kind of keep me going, guide me, keep me on track here with our conversation. So we really, really appreciate everybody joining us and listening in, watching in today. And we do hope you will participate in the summit, either online or in person. You will be surprised the great value that you'll get from it. And I doubt you'll be disappointed. Matter of fact, I know you won't be. So join us there, and please join us for our next episode of the Open Mainframe. Thank you, John. Thank you, Linux Foundation. Thank you to all your companies for your sponsorship of that event. And I hope you'll come back and be on a panel with us again, too.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, welcome back to KubeCon, Cloud Native Con in Valencia, Spain. I got a great crew here from StormForge. It's great to be talking with you both. I don't think I've had either one of you on one of our sessions before. So what a better way than to break you in at KubeCon and,
absolutely.
In Spain, go for it. So Tom, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and then Patrick will have you do that too.
Hey, I'm Tom Ellery. I run worldwide field operations, which includes customer success, revenue, a host of other things with the technical side. Been with StormForge now a little over a year. I've got 6 startups under my belt. I've been in high tech for, probably shouldn't say this, but close to 35, almost 40 years.
Yeah, we stopped counting at 30. So
Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
So edit that out, please.
You're good. Yeah, 30 plus is what we say.
I love it. It's amazing.
Nice. Okay, Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick Bergstrom. I'm the new CTO at StormForge. Not quite as much experience there as Tom. This is actually my first startup. Before that, I was with the enterprise, Fortune 10, Best Buy, United Health Group, all kinds of fun things. And I've been here here for 6 weeks, so still getting my feet underneath me, meeting a lot of customers, doing a lot of travel. It's been a lot of fun.
This is the fast part of the river.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Eventually I'll catch up and it won't feel like it's whitewater rafting anymore.
You get all the rapids too.
Yeah,
but yeah,
exactly.
It's definitely a different pace.
Yeah.
I totally get. So one of you tell folks about Stormforge, just if, we've had you all on before and talked about some very cool things that you're doing, but if you want to
I'll start and then I'll let Patrick weigh in. He can give it from kind of a customer's perspective. I'll give it kind of from the market perspective. So the one thing great about Stormforge, when you start looking at Kubernetes, KubeCon, there's a fair amount of complexities when people start deploying applications in a cloud-native environment. And people are struggling today to try to figure out how they manage cost with performance. Our platform is an optimization platform that allows you to actually look at those trade-offs and not have to give one or the other away and balance those two between cost, performance, which ultimately also leads to quality of code coming out, ensuring you get your releases out on time, and making sure you don't run into critical resource shortages as you're deploying applications inside of a cloud-native environment.
Yeah, it's an important problem space because I remember just going to the cloud, it's sort of a leap of faith of how much do I need? I'm not buying hardware, but is this stuff going to suddenly max out my credit card overnight or my my invoice or whatever?
Yeah.
And kind of same thing with Kubernetes. It consumes a bit of resources, and you need it to when you need it to, but not all the time, right?
I think the interesting, so I've worked in virtualizations for a while. The thing that you saw in virtualization with trying to balance resources with the deployments of applications is now accelerating with Kubernetes. And so we're almost repeating the same issues that we had early on with virtualization.
Figure. We've never done that anywhere else in our industry.
Yeah. And so we're trying to get ahead of that curve where you're more proactive than reactive in solving the problems that customers are going to have, and they just don't have visibility of when they're going to happen.
Yeah, we talk a lot about helping teams accelerate their day two operations, right? Because it's like you said, Kubernetes is very complicated. The number of configurations that exist there that you have to know what it does is crazy. And that's one of the things that actually really drew me to Stormforge as a customer, and then also now obviously as their CTO, is it's true machine learning. And so that helps us eliminate the human bias, which I think is fantastic, because there's been more than one occasion where we've made a recommendation for a configuration and the human behind it said, well, why would we change that? That doesn't make any sense. And then they tried it, sure enough, huge performance impact. It's been fantastic. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's something too, and I remember a point in my career, not every developer thinks about tuning, right? Like the Java virtual machine or whatever environment. It's kind of resources are resources, and there'll be more when I need it, which, that's nice too, but it isn't truly infinite, and it certainly isn't free. I would imagine that you came out of the healthcare industry prior to this, right? They're pretty cost conscious. They watch the dollars closely, right?
Absolutely, and it's especially when I wear my SRE hat, and I hate how much I say this phrase, but it's true. I do it a lot. If you give an SRE a Kubernetes environment and you say, hey, your application has to be available 4 nines, they're going to turn that CPU dial all the way to the right, because that's how you get that valid availability and reliability concerns, is just how much CPU can I throw at it.
So you're saying Stormforge is give an SRE Kubernetes or give SRE Stormforge.
Right, and that's the idea.
Teach them to fish.
Exactly.
That's where I was going for.
Yeah, and that's the idea. We can come in and we can tell you, hey, you want 4 nines, this is the configuration you should use. And then that'll save you X amount of dollars, because every core of CPU beyond this, or memory, or whatever metric you're looking at, isn't doing you any good other than helping you sleep at night, but you don't need it.
So I understand we have an exclusive. You're going to tell us about a big.
I won't. I'm not going to tell you the exclusive. I'm going to let the CTO tell you.
Your Matt was here. Was like, do it, guys.
This is what he does. He puts me in front of a camera and gets me to talk about new features. Yeah,
your new role.
So then I have to commit to delivering that later, right? But one of the biggest things for me, as coming from the enterprise, is the cost of Kubernetes and how much of that is just like I said, it's wasted because people are cranking that dial to the right, and so it's too much CPU compute, ends up being a ridiculous amount on your cloud bill, right? And so one of the things that we're working through right now is this product that we call Illuminate. And the idea is essentially we're going to provide transparency into what you're spending on Kubernetes. And then we'll also be able to natively identify for you the areas of your application, or maybe within your namespace, the ones that are costing you the most, and say, hey, this is one that you need to look at right now. And so it'll help you prioritize where you start by using StormForge. And then also we'll be able to track that over time. Because that's one of the things I love about StormForge is, especially when you look across like a cluster deployment, 99% of the time, in fact, I don't know that we've had a customer yet where we don't save them money. Like, it pays for itself.
Well, we love to over provision,
Yeah,
so you're
everybody, it's crazy.
You know, it's that safety net, right?
Yep.
But how big a safety net do you need?
Yeah, not to the tune of some of the ones that we're seeing where we're saving millions of dollars for customers. It's crazy. And then it has, it kind of has some impact to the environment too when we think about wasted compute cycles, reducing power consumption, all that fun stuff. And then, or like if you're at a physical data center like we have at United Health Group, our data centers were literally full. We were out of space and we didn't want to build another one. Well, with StormForge, we can come in and free up that CPU, so then you can deploy additional namespaces so that you don't have to worry about trying to figure out where you're going to rack another server to get that one more cluster in there. So.
Did I understand correctly? It sounds like you're looking into the application part of how it's consuming or orchestrated, organized through Kubernetes, which, let's face it, you know, you can have nice big fat containers, you can have really sleek, you know, efficient ones, and microservices and service mesh, and it's all in that design. And I'm sure, I mean, large enterprises don't go rewrite all their apps in Kubernetes and highly efficient microservices tomorrow. Right. I mean, it's just a fact of life. New things might get that advantage, but you've got that blended environment where you may be running some less than efficient, but there are more ways you can save money on that, as well as your, you know, maybe your high performance apps.
And what's really interesting too that we've seen when you have a big cluster deployment or a ton of namespaces, more often than not, we'll find one or two that are actually under provisioned just because all these big ones are over provisioned. They're using all the CPU compute, and so then the little guy at the end of the day, there's not enough left for them, and they'll maybe deprioritize it from a reliability perspective. But then when we save, you know, 30-40% off the top for the rest of the namespace, then suddenly we can come in and say, hey, this application, actually, we think you need to deploy a little bit more CPU, a little bit more memory, and then this is what you get for availability and latency as a trade-off, and it's improvements with a minimal cost improvement on just that one application, which is, it's great. It's all these unintended consequences that I love about the capability.
Interesting.
It's interesting when you look at the legacy applications that you brought up. Java's a great example. Java has so many different parameters that you need to tune when you pull it over. Heap, garbage collection, replicas, the list goes on. And if you look at Kubernetes environment, it has all its own variables you need to tune. So the fact that you need to tune these things in concert to ensure that you don't have an outage, like you talked about, I mean, customers have outages because they run out of resources a lot of time. If you had a tool like a optimization platform that could do these all through machine learning and not have humans try to do the dials, the likelihood of success goes up dramatically. And that's really been our sweet spot, is looking at those type of deployments and environments to solve against.
And Matt your CEO has a great story about kind of his time collecting ideas and working on some machine learning and where to apply that, and kind of ended up in the Kubernetes space.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's an interesting journey. As most startups, you pivot a couple times in order to solve the problem. But if you looked at the level of complexities in how ML could actually solve those complexities, and I think in today's industry, it's a little bit of a challenge. Everyone and their brother uses buzzwords around AI and ML, and a lot of them aren't trying to solve a real business problem. And our whole practicality is, where is the business problem that we can help solve? And the Kubernetes one felt right in our sweet spot from a technology-based standpoint.
Well, and that was one of the things for me when I joined the company and I was first looking into it too. It was, I looked at that and I said, I've had this problem for 10 years. Like, this is perfect. Like, I love it. Which got me really excited about what we're doing. And yeah, like Tom said, we started in machine learning. So it's, because one of the things I like to talk about when I was at the enterprise and people would come in and sell to me, it's like, oh, we have this thing, it's machine learning. And then you look under the covers and it's just a Holtz winter forecast in a trench coat. It's like, well, that's not really machine learning, right? But with what we do with this product, it's, like I said, it's true machine learning. We've got our own algorithms that we wrote. I've got PhDs in applied maths on staff that just love this stuff. And the story is so cool about where it came from.
Cool. Well, I'm not going to be Matt and pin you down to an exact date when you're launching this.
Yeah.
It's like
he would want it tomorrow, probably. Yeah.
Well, tomorrow afternoon would be fine.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea on time frame? Generally, plus or minus 12 months.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm going to be really generous.
Yeah,
No.
I don't know if I would still be here if it was plus 12 months.
Yeah,
right. If we don't deliver on it, but no, it's a big priority for me because when I think about who I was as a customer at the enterprise, it's very much okay, what is this doing for me? And to be able to show somebody in a Grafana dashboard, here is the amount of money that you have saved, and then also here's the other amount of money we predict we can save on these other applications. Like it becomes a no-brainer for me. So my hope is soon, right? Tom would say, can you get it next week?
As always, that's what I would ask for.
Yeah,
but I think the marketplace is growing like crazy, as you're aware, and there's so many tools out there that talk about cost, right? And one unique thing about us is it's not just the cost, it's about the trade-off between how much resources and how you want your applications to perform. So you can try to only solve a cost problem, and you're still going to have other OMM and other issues that you run in from a production standpoint. So we want to actually have a platform that not just looks at cost, but it looks at performance, looks at quality, and it's all doing it through an algorithmic way. And so the humans are a little removed from the day-to-day tuning and solving of it, and could actually prioritize higher innovative things within the framework of developing software.
Yeah, very good. Well, hope we see something in 2022, or
my hope would be I think we got right.
That's the best
he's holding him to it.
I doubt I'm going to get better than that.
Right? When's KubeCon North America? Right? Detroit.
Ooh, hey, you're doing it to yourself. That's not me.
We'll see you in October.
All right, Patrick and Tom from StormForge, thank you so much for being with us. Good to have you on Techstrong TV. Come back. We want to hear more about Illuminate.
Sounds perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay tuned. We have more coming. We have some really fantastic interviews in addition to this one, of course. And thanks for joining us. We'll be back real quick.
This is Techstrong TV.
Well, I have the great pleasure today of being joined by Ranjit Tanaikar, who is CEO of Nest Digital Engineering. Welcome, Ranjit. Great to be talking with you.
Great to talk to you too, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Great to have you. So we were just catching up a little bit before talking about Nest, because I remember you all from when I worked in the cable and the video side of the industry, but it's a much different world. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about Nest, and we'll get into digital transformation.
Sure, my pleasure. So Nest has been around for a long time. We were founded in Israel in 1999, and we've done one thing really well throughout our life, which is build proprietary software production platforms. And I'm sure at some point in your life, you must have touched upon or interacted with a piece of software that Nest and the Nest engineers have built. If you were to go to a Hilton hotel room, the video streaming software in your set-top box was probably built by us. If you were to take a mass transit system in London or Arizona or New York or Bangkok, the automated payment systems were built by us. God forbid, if you were to go to a hospital and had to do a CAT scan, there's a good chance that the diagnostic imaging systems were built with pieces of code that we built. So we have been around for a long time, and hopefully these examples give you a sense of the kind of work we do. These are very sophisticated pieces of software built by very talented software engineers that you don't find very easily around the world.
That's so true, especially now.
Yes, especially now.
Let's talk about digital transformation, and not a new term. I mean, you and I, I've been kind of living this for a while, but I think at a business strategy, how we leverage technology, apply these things have changed a lot. I mean, our worlds have changed, whether it's, COVID or war in Ukraine or move to the cloud and SaaS, or, I mean, you could list the technologies.
Right.
It's really more how we think about them at a strategic level, at a board or executive level, and drive the business from it. Agree?
Thank you. I mean, this is a topic very close to my heart. Mitch, because I fundamentally believe that the promise of technology has been sold to management teams and boards, by consultants, by academics, and the technology vendors for the last 30 years. And not without reason. They have had impact. But if you go through all those lessons learned, there's one thing that is always common. And the common lesson learned is, of course, technology and using the best of technology and having the talent to be able to build it and deploy it is critical. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. And more often than not, it's the other stuff, the management culture, the mindsets, the processes, the way we run our businesses, that comes in the way of successful digital transformation. And this new type of digital technology, by which I mean cloud, massive data processing platforms, machine learning and AI, these technologies are just hyper accelerating the level of transformation you can produce in a business. And therefore, the barriers to that transformation are also hyper accelerating. So I wanted to talk a little bit about those. When you talk about, so first one, I think, is just the way we manage our businesses financially. They are built on the annual budgeting cycle. Transformations cannot be made slave to the annual budgeting cycle. And very often, a transformation takes 2 to 3 to 4 years, sometimes 10 years. I was talking to the head of one of the world's largest automotive manufacturing company. And they are looking at electrical vehicles, and they are going to rapidly transform this whole industry. Now, the auto dealerships of this company are in the range of making 70 billion to 80 billion euros every year. A large portion of that comes from after sales, parts, and service. Well, you don't need that for EVs. So what are you going to do with these businesses? The transformation that dealership has to go through to come up with new sources of revenue like leasing, financing, car subscriptions, and so on and so forth, will not come in one quarter or one annual budgeting cycle. You have to take a 10-year view. And the discussion we had with them was, how can we work together for the next 10 years, right? That doesn't happen very often. The second is around commercial risks. There is a reason why innovation is hard. It's not because people don't have good ideas. It's because very often an innovation means sometimes cannibalizing your existing products and your businesses. And very often you're not ready for that. So I used to run a fintech business. We came up with a new product platform and we wanted to take it to our customers. But guess what? These customers were using our old platform for 15 years. Now I go to them with my new fancy product. They say, you know what, Ranjit, I really like to use it, but if I'm going to incur the switching costs of going from my old platform to your platform, then might as well issue an RFP and see what's out there. And now I've increased my revenue risk.
That's what you wanted to hear.
Exactly. So it's, commercial risk is the second one. And I think the third one is ecosystems. The digital technologies have fundamentally transformed the way we engage customers as well as suppliers. The traditional boundaries between your business and my business along the value chain have been destroyed. Now, a traditional enterprise has problems even coordinating within the enterprise, between the product team and the sales team and the customer service team. Well, now you're talking about integrating with the customer's distribution arm or the suppliers. And that's where a lot of these digital transformation programs have limitations in the way they get executed. So I feel like the digital transformation is not a technology problem only. It is more importantly a management culture, a business model, and a strategy problem.
I really like the way you've broken it down and for a couple of reasons. One is no plan is static. As a matter of fact, every plan is wrong as soon as you hit the save button, right? Or you don't even hit the save button on some apps today. But you have to constantly change. I mean, you may acquire a company, you may acquire the technology that you were planning on building or buying or whatever, or, sell out part of the business, or, who knows what's going to change. It will change. That's a given fact. So I think the ability to react and sort of sometimes adjust, sometimes rethink, sometimes re-strategize about how we go, where we're going with our transformation. The other is, you mentioned the auto, dealers. nobody knows what that model really looks like until you get into market and try it, right? And you start to do things, and they'll discover this doesn't bring us in enough revenue, and this does, and we've pivoted to that, and they're going to course correct a bunch of times. So you can't plan for what the answer is. You can plan for heading down a path and being able to adjust with it. And yes, the technology's there to help you and maybe enable it. Maybe it's a key strategic element of it, but it's no longer, if we just buy the next Sybase or Oracle database based whatever, ERP system, we've got everything we need. We know that's not the right answer. Those products are fine, but it's not a single silver bullet. Like I think we've sold a lot of technology to our boardrooms.
I think you said it very well, Mitch. I think strategy is never a linear path. It's a constantly, so long as you know what your end goal is and what your end vision is, then as the world changes, you can always adjust your path to get there.
Mm-hmm. And something else you mentioned is the systemic nature of the environment we're working in, the ecosystem, right? Another way to say that. I mean, my belief about supply chains is it isn't about rebuilding them, it's about continuously rebuilding them. I mean, you have to do that right now. Who knows? Maybe we'll end up in a fairly stable situation again where we can rely on certain suppliers. I just don't think that's the near term, certainly in the next 3 to 5 years.
Supply chain piece is an interesting one. And I have, we are a tech services firm, so I have an interesting vantage point into the tech talent supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's been disrupted. It's been disrupted by COVID, and it's been disrupted by the Ukrainian crisis and the dislocation of demand across many companies. And there is a price to pay for that. Of course, a number of companies have not been able to get their products out to market fast enough, and capital has been constrained in the way it flows across all these opportunities. But I think something good also has come out of it. And I was just this morning talking to somebody who said that this whole work from anywhere is here to stay now.
Mm-hmm.
And that totally changes the way we do business.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You can have a team which is 25% in East Europe, 30% in USA, and the rest in LATAM. And technology can make it all seamless, because guess what? You know what? You and I could be right now sitting right next to each other in the other room, or we could be in different ends of the continent and you would not know.
It's, I do a show called CISO Talk, and we've talked a lot about how the role of the CISO has shifted from this is what I'm designing, protecting, building, et cetera, to I'm outsourcing all that. My corporate network inside my building is run by somebody else, and it looks just like the Starbucks network or the whatever. Because what's the difference, right? I mean, why should I have one environment that looks completely different from every hotel and restaurant and park bench or whatever you might be in? I've got to be able to design it for any location, right? That's a different mindset, different model.
So true, so true. It's going to be a fascinating world, Mitch. I really think the next 5 years. In fact, I was going to say, given all this change, and if you look at the current macroeconomic environment, I'm actually enjoying this macroeconomic uncertainty, because I think it's going to take a little bit of the froth out of the market.
Mm-hmm.
And when the tide recedes, I think we'll be left with companies that are really solid and who actually are value creating in the way they operate. And the discussion around cybersecurity that you mentioned is an example of that. I think we have to take that very seriously, but we have to take it in a way that is cost efficient and smart. And if you do it the right way, I think you'll serve you well in the years to come.
Well, it's interesting that we kind of get into these runaway chain reactions, right? Where it's just, it builds on itself, and valuations get crazier and funding models get interesting. And once in a while, it eventually will reset or whatever that is. Just picking on investment side of it. But it's sort of like the trajectory we were on before COVID, right? Before lockdown. And that, boom, everything changes. And yes, some things go back somewhat, but a lot doesn't. It's my belief is you can't change a fundamental component of a system and expect it to return back to its previous stable state. It won't. It's not possible. So you change enough elements like this, and now you have a lot of disruption. But that's where the opportunity is, right, Rajat?
Totally. I mean, yeah, change is. There's a story about the newspapers. Over the last 150 years, every 50 years, somebody comes and says, well, look at this new technology, the telegraph or the television or whatever, the internet, and the newspapers are going to die. And actually, it just became different and more effective at every stage, and they're still here. And you look at Jeff Bezos, he's completely reinventing the Washington Post, and it's personalized news, and it's viral news, and it's a different type of news. So I feel like change is always an opportunity if you want to do good business.
Well, I'd love to have you back because we get to explore any of these areas. And we do a lot of work on digital transformation, especially at the CXO level too. So hopefully you'll come back and join us. We'll kind of go down a few of these paths. That'd be great. Well, thanks for joining us today. Ranjit is CEO with Nest Digital Engineering. We'll talk to you again.
Talk to you. Thanks, Mitch.
CISO Talk, to hear how real-world CISOs are dealing with today's real-world issues. From enabling secure remote workers to accelerating secure cloud adoption, defending against a pandemic of security attacks and beyond. CISO Talk covers the cyber topics you want to learn about. With your hosts, Unisys CISO Matt Newfield and MediaOps CEO Alan Schimmel, featuring a revolving panel of CISO cyber experts. This is where CISOs talk. Join us on digitalanarchist.com and techstrong.tv.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Ofer Mayor, who's CTO for Mitiga, and we're going to be talking about security in the land of Office 365 and Slack. Ofer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We've seen large numbers of organizations embrace Slack and Office 365 messaging, I guess, because there's email in there to a certain degree, but it's working to varying degrees from a workplace perspective, but irregardless of what you think of those platforms, they still need to be secured. But it seems to me a lot of organizations are overlooking that. So why is that happening, Ofer?
So I wouldn't say overlooking is necessarily the word, but I think, as we look through different technologies that we've embraced over the years, starting with emails and so on, attackers would always find a way to take advantage even of existing functionality and existing usage. And we've built a lot of compensating controls and a lot of user education as well, right? If you get a weird email, you'd suspect it's a phishing or whatever. These chat platforms are still young, and attacks on them are still young as well. We haven't got a lot of mileage there, and so we haven't built a lot of the security, both in the technology side, the compensating controls and security products on top of them, nor the user awareness and attention around that.
Are these attacks fundamentally different, or is it basically the same thing where somebody steals somebody's credentials and pretends to be somebody else and then starts passing around files full of malware? Or is there something unique and different about the way that these platforms are compromised?
So I think there's a little of both, right? So of course, a very popular attack vector is I'd get credentials and use them for various things. I think there's something about the instant culture of chat that allows for certain types of fraudulent activity to be easier. If we look at the EA attack from a year ago, where somebody got their hands on a Slack account, and then they used that to reach out to tech support through Slack and have the main user reset password and the multi-factor authentication. Right. This is something that you wouldn't be able to do by email in an old-fashioned way, but because everybody on Slack, just write something, somebody reports. It's like a conversation only the authenticity is determined by the little line that says who you are, it makes it easier. So I would say that on one side, we're going to see a lot of all types of attack that manifest through the new way of communication, not necessarily malware, but impersonation, using misconfigured permissions and so on. But there are also other things that are a little more unique to these platforms. So again, some of it's culture, some of it's technology. But if we take Slack, for instance, everybody in Slack can create a new group and add people to it and start talking about things in there, right? And the default, if you create a new group in Slack, is that it's a public group. That's part of the Slack culture, right? Everybody can search, everybody can join. People don't always think about it. People are not security people. So you go into organization and you look at their groups. A lot of their public groups have very sensitive data that maybe only the 5 or 6 people on that group should see. But in theory, anybody who searches it can join it and see anything in it. It could be thousands of people in the organization. So one compromised account will be able to access a lot of data. Another thing that we see is that a lot of this is also used not just for chat or conversation, but as sort of a knowledge management system. People started using Slack as a place to start documents, history, and a lot of other things. So that's one side of it. On the technology side, what we also see, and that's true for all SaaS platforms to a degree, but very strong with Slack, is that it's an ecosystem. So there's a lot of third-party integration and a lot of trust that goes on between those integrations. So I may be able to take over a Slack account and use it to do things in Office 365 or in Salesforce or in another system that has a plugin or integration into Slack.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that some of these folks are lurking on these platforms for months trying to get a vibe for how the organization operates, and that's part of their strategy is they want to impersonate somebody, but they got to go and actually sit there and kind of observe how they work for a while before they can successfully do that?
Of course, and we see that with attackers, especially around ransomware attacks, in pretty much every way we look, right? When you look at the big ransomware attacks, the one you hear on the news with millions and tens of millions of ransom, these numbers are not random. Attackers learn the organization, they take advantage of the access they have to figure out what would be the right target and the right number to go with that target. And we expect the same to happen with Slack and Office 365. And we've recently investigated a few Office 365 incidents where the initial attack vector was months before the actual exploitation or taking advantage of the system took place. And we can see that this was used to gather intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Are there best practices for thwarting these types of attacks? I mean, am I supposed to be training my end users? Or are there technologies and policies I put in place? How do I kind of approach this?
So, like anything in security, it's a combination, right? It's process, technology, and people. So the first thing is awareness. Teaching your employees that this could happen goes a long way. Telling them, to not respond immediately on anything in Slack, but if it looks weird, to stop for a second and think, wait, maybe the person talking with me on the other side is not that real person. It's also about building the right security controls in place, permission. So in my org, whenever I see a new public group being formed, I look at it and I check whether it should be public. And if it's not, I change it to private. And I also tell the person who created it to notice that in the future, they need to do it private. And it works. It works because people learn when you teach them. And so getting people to understand that, making sure there's less permissions, but also employing the right security features. So a lot of these platforms have security features. Unfortunately, some of these security features are only available in the higher tiers. So for instance, if you look at Slack, only the enterprise tier gives you the full single sign-on and logs and all of those things. But if you're an organization that wants and cares deeply about security and that uses Slack as a core platform, then you should go up there and use those features.
We hear a lot about AI these days. Do you think AI will play a role at some point in helping us mitigate these types of breaches and attacks, or is it more hype than substance?
I had this exact conversation an hour ago with an investor, and he said a very good statement. He said, the day that the only way attackers will attack us will be using AI that attacks, then AI that defends could be sufficient. But as long as humans are smart enough to create new ways to attack, we will need also humans to help defend. AI can help, of course, but I think AI is sometimes overhyped in thinking how much it can do. Because hackers, is all about being smart and finding ways to circumvent technology. Not necessarily for bad, right? When we say the word hacker, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but hackers in nature are people who look for ways around technology limitations. So when we build good AI, it will just mean that the hackers will need to come up with new ways to break the AI. There are new attacks on AI now.
A lot of these attacks are essentially social engineering. In the early days, you could always kind of somewhat spot them, but it looks to me now that the people who are perpetrating these attacks are getting a lot more sophisticated in their ability to mimic organizations and kind of mimic individuals and your boss and everybody else. So is that because their language skills are getting better, or are they just hiring people who are native speakers and going for it?
I think it's because they're investing more resources, right? So everything you said is right. They hire the right people, they perfect the skill, and it's become mainstream. If you look, I've been in the industry for a long time now. 20 years ago, most attacks were either individuals, small groups, people doing it for fun. Today, it's a business. Organized crime has moved online, and it's a business, and because of that, they get the people with the right skills. And I think as defenders, as the organizations that are being attacked, we need to understand that this is not going to stop. There will always be social engineering, and it will always be successful to some degree. And so it's about building compensating controls. It's about building additional layers of verification for critical things. And it's also about preparing and being ready for breaches to happen, because they will happen. They're unavoidable, but we can reduce their impact if we're ready to them and we know how to respond to them quickly.
All right. So what is your best advice to folks? What should they be thinking about or doing, or what do you wish that a lot of them would do as a fundamental before they even got a hold of you?
So there are, two areas to focus on, right? The first one is protection. Do better job at securing your environment, permissions. Of course, I'm going to start with the trivial, but I still see organizations that don't use two-factor authentication. That's such a basic thing that doesn't solve, but helps a lot. So putting the right security in place, putting permissions, making sure you have a strong minimal permission policy for everything you do in your environments. But then the other thing is get ready for a breach. And what does it mean? It means that you have plans in place, you understand how a breach is going to look like, you collect the right data so that when a breach happens, you can go back and investigate and discover what happened so that you can respond to it and know what happened in the most efficient way. And those are things that all can be done today before there's any incident, before anything happens, just improving your posture, both around protection and around response.
All right. Well, let's just assume that something bad's going to happen and be prepared to respond accordingly. Beaufort, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
All right. Back to you guys in the studio.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Alicia Klubchuk, who's a product marketing director for Barracuda Networks, and we're talking about HTML attachments and security these days. Alicia, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You guys just put out a report that says that for the most part, it's HTML attachments that are the most malicious these days. Folks tend to think of PDFs and all kinds of other stuff. So is there a shift going on here? And if so, what's driving that?
Well, I think HTML attachments has always been a big problem. It's just that this problem is growing over time because they're so easy for hackers to use to trick users into, entering their credentials into phishing sites. It's much harder to do so with PDFs or Word documents. HTML attachments just lend themselves so well to different hacks.
Is there some way to discover these attachments that people should be using, or is it really just a matter of training end users not to go click on them, or maybe a little bit of both?
You know what? It's really a combination of both. Like you do want your email security to look out for HTML attachments. Not every vendor offers that, but most do today. So you do want to look for those HTML attachments. You don't at the same time want to just block all of them, because there are teams within each organization, there are individuals within each organizations that may expect to receive HTML attachments, but not everybody. So you do want to look for them. And I would say, our research found 1 in 5 of those attachments are malicious. So if you get one, you want to treat all of them suspiciously compared to PDFs or Words or any other one. So in the same way, you would probably treat executables. A lot of organizations just block executables, but that is not always the best strategy with HTML. Another way of looking at for HTML attachments is not just looking at the attachments themselves, but you really want to take into account everything else about the email. Where's this email is coming from? Who is sending this? Maybe even content of the email message as well, and look for other signals that may suggest that the attachment is malicious.